don't know why it's such a
Being
surprise for
6:15,
every
we'll
department.
always start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. As usual,
Oh, I need to.
put your cell phones off or put it on vibrate, please. And first one is Karen.
Hi, how you doing?
Wait. I gave you a runoff of what I was gonna try to do for the list of budget cuts.
Okay, you got, you wanna talk to us about the difference?
Well, they're gonna be tough. I have no idea how we're gonna get through the 38% cut. That's more than one full-time position that's gone. And we haven't had less than 2 full-time people at any point since I've been there, ever. So that is totally wiping out at least one position plus part of another one. So, from the 4.09 to the 17 one, it's just gonna cut back on hours that we're open, hours that we can handle calls, which will cut down on adoptions and customers, and I don't know what else to say.
I bet you Ron can get you to say something.
Thank you for the introduction. What's the staffing now? 2 full-time people,
I have 2 full-time people,
including yourself, right?
including myself. I have 1 part-time position, but it's shared by 3 people because nobody wants to work every weekend and every holiday. So it's still just 1 part-time position. And that's only for like 13 hours a week. Even though it's 3 people, but
You have volunteers also, right?
I have volunteers, but they really can only help with waiting on customers, answering some phone calls. They help in the morning with some cleaning. It's limited on what I have, and they can't handle any of the new animals or any of the tough ones, and tonight was the first time in a long time I've been able to leave them at the shelter when I'm not there. I just didn't want to close tonight, so.
Any other questions?
mean-
Well, okay, on the full-time, on the 4%, cut in vet services, office. And if you go if the 17 were used, you'd be cutting 1 person, 1 full-time person?
The 17, I think I wrote the wrong amount on that second part
You what?
for that list. I think I wrote the 38.26
Yeah,
twice.
that's all right.
So that's, I think, half of the full-time person, plus about half of the part-time inspector, some money from the part-time people. I wiped out office supplies, custodial supplies, and some of the vet services. So we'll be picking up a lot. I mean, we pick up dead animals for the most part. We'll be picking up a lot less of them. And I think when we get to the bigger budget cuts, it might only be dead dogs, cats, and deer, and not even pick up anything else. So you're gonna have the raccoons and the possums and the skunks just on the roads.
What is the inspector?
That's
he
all
like
the
a vet?
quarantines and all the inspections of the kennels. We have yearly inspections, all the dog quarantines, the cat quarantines. We have 10-day, 45-day, and 6-month quarantines. We have isolations. So anytime an animal comes in with a bite wound, there's quarantines involved. Anybody that has their animal come home with a wound, even if it has a shot, it's still a quarantine, and that's state mandated that the town have an animal inspector. So that, with the last budget cut, that pretty much wipes out that whole pay for that position. I think it leaves like $121 for the year.
Basically, and if 38%, you're the only one left, right?
I'm the only one left. With some part-time help for some days. And we're at the shelter every day. We dug out for all the blizzards. All the kennels have to be dug out outside. All the animals, we have to have the paths dug through every storm. So we were there through every blizzard this winter.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay,
Is that
Karen.
it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see. Town clerk.
Hey, Ray Ray.
What is this?
Boy. Good. Hey, I'm not dumb. Look, you kidding. Mr. Chairman, for the record, Kevin Porter, Town Clerk, with Patty McNeely, my right arm, left arm, everything, right now as I get broken into the Town Clerk office.
Even after that, she'll still be all those things?
Yeah. Oh, easy now, come on. You know, it said no food in here, I'm not red meat, okay? I remember the old days of testifying before the Finance Committee as a school committee member, and those were interesting sessions, because we had, at the time, we had fiscal autonomy. And Bill Payton used to sit over there, and I'll tell you, he used to love cutting the blazes out of our budget. But then we had the opportunity to go back and get that money back.
I went to court once.
We did it twice, yeah. So you know. Our budget is it's not complicated. If you look at it, the majority of it is salaries. With the level funded budget, the bottom line is $85,322. However, with scenario number one, with the 4.09 level service cut, what we are actually doing is we're going to take the elected clerk salary, my salary, and we're going to cut it from $20,124 to $18,500. Part-time clerical position, she's going to be cut from 19 hours to 17 hours, from $17,009 to $16,500. And the full-time clerical person will remain the same. And our operating budget will cut from $2,958 to $2,525. So the bottom line will go from $85,322 to $81,832. That's with scenario number one. Scenario number two, with the 17.35% cut, the elected part-time clerk salary goes from, wait a minute, excuse me. Yeah, it goes to $18,500, which is the same as with the 4.09 cut. The part-time clerical position goes from 17 hours to 5 hours, a cut of $16,500 to $5,000. The full-time clerk remains the same, and our operating budget goes down to $2,500. Scenario number three, the 17.35% cut. The elected part-time clerk salary goes from $18,500 to $15,000, a $2,500 cut. The part-time clerical position is cut. We have no overtime. Overtime is taken out completely. The full-time clerk position is cut from 44 to 36, and it's cut back from 34 hours to 27 and a half hours. The operating budget is cut to $52,650. It's, when we get to the last cut, that's bare bones, and I don't know how we can, it would be very difficult for us to operate on it.
I had
Yes,
a question on the 17%
Yes.
cut. You have a part-time clerical, 5 hours. That's 5 hours a week?
5 hours a week.
yes.
Okay,
That's
do
what
you
it was
see anyone actually doing that? I mean,
Exactly.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
what
that's-
we're left with.
Okay.
What that basically does is cover our lunch hour for coverage. But there's no help there. And not to mention that with these salaries and these reductions, the town clerk's office also took over a new, we have a new software where we are managing all the, retention schedules and what we can dispose of and all that. We have a new, that came in from prior years. It's finally coming into effect now for a couple of departments, and the clerk's office is at the operator of it. So that's an additional function that's being added on to the office with less staff. These cuts are, when you get down to even the 17.35 at 5 hours a day, you can't run one person in a department. It's on 5 hours. 15, 10, yeah, we can make it do. And that's what we've done. We've managed to, break that down, but as we get farther into the scenarios, they worsen us, and of course, as we can see.
And I think the other thing, Patty has vacation time. And with that 38.26 cut, going to be very difficult to cover when she's gone. I will be the one who will be there most of the time, and I'm still feeling my way around the office. So that will be definitely a hardship.
And also, the town clerk's position is considered part-time because of salary. You're not gonna work for 34, 40 hours for
Yeah.
15, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? So that doesn't work that way, but at the same time, when you take out, I have 6 weeks vacation, and I've been here 23 years, love North Attleborough. Great community. It's great, it's worth every fight, and that's what we all fighting for.
You got your blue and white on tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
I forgot my red.
Yeah, okay. Oh,
Red.
that's okay. That's okay.
But, when you take those services out, that's what you're gonna get.
I know you have a very difficult job. It's an extremely difficult job. I don't envy you. But I know that you're going to come up with a scenario that's going to be best for the community. We're all probably not going to be happy, but I just wish you the best of luck in what you come up with. And thank you for what you do.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, not really. On
You
your
guys all
co-
got a handout from us, so you can,
Right.
Yep.
you see it line by line there we cut, and, awesome,
Pretty self-explanatory.
Yep.
thank you.
It
That's what
goes
it was
from,
about.
it goes from bad to worse.
Your pets?
Go ahead.
This she is.
But this is,
Here goes. Okay. Good, okay. Night. See ya.
do we have, anything from them, a handout from the elections?
Yeah, she emailed it.
We don't even have a sheet, in here for them, because they were on the list of the ones that we can't touch. Mark gave us special, certain ones that we
Right,
can't touch.
right.
They wanted to come in anyway, just to talk to them. But that's, I think, you won't have a sheet from them.
We had some more members coming, but. No, let's go through it. Well, thank you for having us, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Torpy. I'm the chairman of the Election Commission. On behalf of Pat, who's the only member here tonight, I hope you had an opportunity to review our forms that Pat was sent over to you. It outlines the duties, responsibilities. No, you didn't get that?
Yeah, you sent it out. I personally didn't see it until about 5 o'clock tonight for a few, I only saw it, I didn't get back until about 5, and I just took a quick
I don't even
scan.
remember sending them.
Well, Pat,
I know he was working on them, but I think they're pretty good.
Pat sent out You want, yeah, you got some copies?
Do you mind?
You wanna,
If they want them.
if you wanna look at it real quick.
I didn't make that many of
We
them.
only
No.
have three, but.
We'll share.
Yeah. Here, Paul needs one.
Well, no, you,
Here.
yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Like the way so why are they even here wasting their time when they're so busy?
The first 3 or 4 pages deals mostly with the duties, responsibilities of the election commission. There's plenty of information in there that's probably not worth my while going over. A lot of it deals with times when certain things have to happen. In other words, the last day to register to vote, the taking out of nomination papers, return of nomination papers. All of those have dates and times that have to be complied with. State rules, state regulations, state laws. I'll give you a minute if you want to just kind of breeze through that. There's an awful lot of dates and times there that probably are not terribly significant to you. But, and it goes on to say what the department does. A lot of people think all we do is elections. That's not true. The 2016 year is going to be a pretty busy year. Now, I'm talking calendar year. I realize this budget is fiscal year 2016, which ends July, right? July.
It starts in
But
July
we,
1st.
we kind of look at it as a calendar year because we'll have 5 elections in 2016, including a presidential. That's a big deal for us. There's an awful lot of work, responsibilities that goes into a presidential election. There's a primary. There's a federal primary in around March timeframe. There's also a state primary in September, and then the presidential in November. So those are 3 pretty substantial elections that we have to deal with. The department also does a lot more. We send out an annual census every year. That goes out in the February timeframe. That requires about 11,000 mailings to 11,000 households in town. And we get, hopefully, a good response back. We have this year, over 50% have come back, which means that everyone that comes back, that has to be sorted, analyzed to see if there's any changes to be made. If there isn't, they all have to be scanned into the system called VRIS, which is the voter registration state system. And if there are any changes, it all has to be done manually. It's very time consuming. So that's one of the duties that the ladies in the office do. Janet does most of it. In the spring, there's, well, like I said, that goes out in February, and that probably runs very active until, at least for 2 months, as these forms start coming back in. There's, boxes and boxes of these forms. So that takes the ladies quite a long time to process that. I'm just going to go over real quick, and if you want to look at it, the 4.09% budget cut, which is proposed. Did you happen to read the red?
Yes, it says you're exempt.
Well,
So we're exempt, but we were told that we wouldn't have to make the other budget cuts, elections, and we.
I think, Mark explained the fact.
yeah,
that
there was some
the
talk,
problems
conversation about that.
would be created.
Personally, and we've talked about this in the department, if there's a budget cut across the board, I think the election department should also be cut. Because I don't feel it's fair that one department be exempt from these budget cuts. And we can certainly absorb a 4.09% cut with some creative line item deductions. And the line item deductions are, well, most of it is part-time salaries, a lot of them for poll workers. We'll be cutting a number of poll workers. We'll be cutting some of the part-time census workers' salary. We used to have part-time census workers who did a lot of the mundane work, if you will, with the census. So those are the kind of, if you notice the first page, it says that's most of the budget cuts are in that area. regular overtime cut from 3,000 to 2,000, things of that sort. This is all part of the 4.9% cut. And there's an awful lot of other things that, you know, I call them nickels and dimes, they're really not. They're $100, $200, $300, some of them $500 and $700, that we can probably absorb without having a huge impact on the department. So, and also, you have a page of every line item that would be affected with the 4.09% cut. If there's any questions, please stop me. Then we go to a 17.35%. That would have a significant impact. We would have to certainly eliminate the preliminary election. Now, in order to do that, as Ron, you know that, we have to present this to the town meeting in October. Has to be voted on, approved by the, I presume, by the Finance Committee, and voted on by the RTM.
I don't understand what you're.
May I?
Yeah.
Just so everybody here is aware, I'm on RTM and I'm on the coordinating committee. And one of the suggestions that was made is that we, as a coordinating committee, submit an article to eliminate the primary elections. And I went to the election commissioners for the coordinating committee and asked them the question, and the election commissioners have decided themselves that they're gonna submit an article to do away with that.
Yeah. And yeah, that's.
So that's just a short amount of background as to what's going on.
Well, no, what is the preliminary election?
Preliminary election is
Primary.
election that's required by the town bylaws.
It should be.
Town bylaws say that if you have more than 50% running for any particular office, then you must narrow the field down. In other words, if we had 5 selectmen running for 2 positions, we would have to narrow that field back to 4. So we have a preliminary election just to do that, so eliminate 1. We just had a preliminary election in February for town clerk, where there were 4 names on the ballot. One of them had already withdrawn, so there's actually only 3 people running for 1 seat. We had to narrow that down to 2 people.
700 people.
So we had 7, and in the day that we had it, it was almost, the whole thing was almost canceled. It was a terrible snowstorm the day before. So we were really hard pressed to get that election
How much did
up and
that
running.
cost?
Huh?
How much did that cost?
Well,
I could give you that.
the-
She was waiting for that question.
Trying to anticipate
you
what
see,
you
there's two questions, though. How much does it cost the town, how much does it cost the election commission? I mean, actually, all the money comes from the town, so there are
Right,
other
right.
things that we don't,
Total cost.
we don't have in our budget, like police.
Yeah.
It cost $10,000. $10,600.
$10,000 for 700 votes. I don't know, you do the math.
$15 a vote.
That's as bad as Norton with $40 a
Yeah,
vote.
$40 a vote, yes, they're not.
Ours cost $15.
Well, and anyways, we would have to narrow it down to half the candidates for the, this is, now, then it would go on the April town election. So with the 17.35% reduction in our budget, that would be just about imperative that we had that passed. And there's plenty of other things. And most of the hits are taken by the poll workers. In other words, we're gonna cut our poll workers drastically to accomplish this. We're gonna do a couple of things. We're gonna cut the numbers of poll workers we have. We're gonna cut all the meals that we provide for them. So that, therefore, all of the people who are working, we're gonna have to be released for at least an hour at noontime and an hour at dinner time to go McDonald's, wherever they wanna go to get dinner. We would take that 2 hours' salary that they would normally have gotten and reduce their pay by that amount every election. So these are the kind of things that we have to do. And the problem with that is that at 5 o'clock, which is our busiest time, we have only half the staff on board. We're gonna have some long lines and some people who are really not very happy about their delays. But, I mean, if that's what it comes to, that's what it comes to. We'll have to do it.
If they're unhappy, ask them if they
Huh?
voted. If they're unhappy, ask them if they voted in.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't ask them that, Ron.
I
You could
would.
certainly stagger their election dinner
I might,
times.
might imply it, but I don't think I would ask that question.
I'll ask for it.
Yeah, you can ask that question. So it's mostly poll workers. The ladies in the office will have to stagger their shifts. In other words, we can't have two people on at one time. They would, because Pat actually, on a normal election, he comes in about 5 o'clock in the morning, and she's there till 10 o'clock at night. Janet's just about the same. So they would stagger so that they would eliminate a lot of the overtime that they incur just at that time. There are plenty of opportunities for the election office to be open after the town hall closes. We have to stay open till 5 o'clock, where the town hall closes at 4, on many days when there is a initiative petitions coming in, or there is a last day to vote. We have to stay open till 8 o'clock that night. So there's plenty of hours that have to be manned, personed, if that's the right word, by the election department, which is over and above the town hall hours. And there is a breakdown in the red column that suggests the 17.35%, what would be cut. All of the line items are there. One of the things that bothers me a lot is that the maintenance of all of our equipment will be compromised.
I didn't affect that with the budget cuts at all.
Well,
Those figures have to be there.
okay.
We have to pay for ballots, we have to pay for maintenance and coding.
Yes, we have
So
no,
those weren't cut.
we have no choice with that. And the ballots are what they are. We can't control that. We can't control the amount of money that costs to code the machines. So these are the things,
Have to what?
the coding of all the voting machines.
Okay.
We send out the memory packs to a company called ES&S that does the software coding on these packs
Is that done for each election,
every election,
based on the ballot?
based on a ballot. Yep, we send them.
I never realized that.
We send them the ballot, and they put all the names, addresses, and that all has to be checked, by the way. It has to be confirmed that, they spell your name correctly and things of that sort. So there's quite a bit involved there. But again, it's a cost that the town has no control over. And I was going to mention the fact that, we also cut a lot of supplies. I hate to see we can stock up some supplies, but eventually supplies run out. I can't believe we're gonna have, won't be able to buy printer ink and paper for our voting machines and ribbons for our typewriters and things of that sort. I mean, we're looking at nickels and dimes here, but, it's significant running a department. So that would cut $25,000 out of our budget. That's 17.35%. And then the last page deals with cutting 38.26%. That would include everything in the other budgets that have been cut, plus a full-time worker. That means the department would be one person. Quite frankly, it's physically impossible for one person to run a presidential election. It can't be done. There's too much, it'd be overwhelming. You couldn't possibly do it. There's too much work that has to happen. And I know I've been involved now for, how long? Well, 15 years. And I've worked a lot of presidential elections. I've worked in the office for a lot of presidential elections. And the staff that is there, a lot of them were brought on temporarily, just for the period of time before and after the election to accommodate the the amount of work. Absentee ballots are just a huge responsibility for a big election like the presidential. So one person just couldn't do it. So I don't know about this 38% cut. If we did it, I don't know, lock the door and put the lights out, I guess. That's the way I look at it.
Remember, you volunteered. Mark had you excluded.
Well, you know, that's in a nutshell. I mean, if you want to look through that, those are all the facts and figures that Pat has put together, and they're pretty accurate. Any questions?
Hey, John.
No?
Sorry.
Anybody want to add anything? Pat, you want to add anything? No? Is that enough? I said enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't envy you your task to make this happen, but
I
good luck.
appreciate you doing that, though.
Wow. You know,
So this.
what's that? Oh, Julian's gonna do the veterans?
Do we have anything for the veterans? A budget for the veterans?
We don't have a sheet
Ron?
for the veterans, right?
We don't have one for the
We don't
veterans
have
either?
veterans for the same reason, Mark had put them in the category.
Okay.
Basically not touched.
I am protected. However, I did bring you the budget so we could review it together. And I
Okay.
also brought you some data so you would understand how we do, what we do, and how we're doing in comparison to the rest of the state.
You're making a great leap of faith if you think you can use the word understand and address it to me.
I have a great deal of faith in this board. I sat on it for many, many years. I know how hard you work.
Want to come back?
No, I can't come back. I'm not allowed.
I know.
However, if I retire someday, you never know. David, how are you? Thank you. You have other members, correct?
I do.
So I said I'm pouring out for all of them, actually. So, there you go. As Ron so aptly put it, protected, that's a nice word. I like that word. But the reason we're obviously not going to be able to cut the veterans' budget is because 99% of it is all veterans' benefits. And as you know, we get 75% of every dollar that we spend on veterans, back on the cherry sheet. And if you don't know, we would be punished, if you will, I'll use that word,
good
if we
word.
don't pay the benefits that these veterans are entitled to, then the state, in its infinite wisdom, charges us 125%.
State doesn't have infinite wisdom.
Well, they think they do when it comes to this. So I basically presented the budget to you, that is the budget that is currently for fiscal 15. It's almost the same thing. There's a few changes, and that's because when you have an opportunity or you want to look at this graph that I gave you, you will see that among the average communities with a population between 23,712 and 33,712, we have the highest number of clients from 2007 and up and up and up and up. It's
So,
amazing.
The red line is the state average,
Yes,
and the blue line is us.
yes, the blue line are the actual number of clients that we serviced within that fiscal year. The second page with the 4 individual graphs shows you, the first box says ordinary benefits, which is basically cash aid. And that's determined based on a formula when the veteran comes in and brings in their particular information. The other one is fuel. There's fuel adjustments that they're allowed. Some are allowed the fuel benefit, some are not. That's why they break it out like this, because not every veteran gets every single benefit available to them. The other one is for medical, which is prescriptions, doctors, hospitals, dental claims. Some are allowed, some are not. Ambulance payments, anything to do with medical, and then miscellaneous, which again, you'll see, we're a little bit below that, which I'm very happy to say, because we haven't got too many claims over the 7-year period that this graph reads that we had anything substantial in the way of miscellaneous. But I'll give you an example. A miscellaneous claim would be if you are a veteran and you are in arrearage on your rent, we would be able to help you out. If you were in an apartment that you had to move from because of lead or mold or some safety reason, we would be able to help you out with money that you need to move on. as you know, most landlords require first and last, or some security. There are a few other miscellaneous things. Under the miscellaneous category would also be, sadly, burials. Veterans allowed $2,000 towards the expense of a burial at a funeral home. But we don't have any big jumps there. There's just 1 year here where, for whatever reason, 2010, there's a big spike. But we seem to either run or stay below the average in miscellaneous. However, as you can see, we far exceed in ordinary benefits, fuel, and medical. So currently, we have almost 70 clients on the rolls. They get paid once a month in a check. And then those that have medical coverage, which is frankly just about every single one of them, brings in their doctor's bills, and we pay them or we'll reimburse them. Some have what's called a spend down requirement, so that they have, because of the calculations that are used within the software formula, they may have to spend $30 or $40 of their own money before they're entitled to be, then claim or have us pay it or reimburse them. But for the most part, we only have a few clients that have spend downs. Most of them are all within the range, the threshold that allows them to be paid, to have all that expense paid for them.
About educational benefits, they used to have the GI Bill, do they do anything?
That's
like
on the
that?
federal level. We don't do that in North Attleborough per se, but we would certainly be of assistance to them if that's what they wanted to do. We do have, in fact, I just had the clerk in the office hang something up today. I got a flyer for the years of service that you have as a veteran can be converted to credits towards different educational programs, and there's one out there now for nursing. So there are tremendous ability for a veteran to get assistance all over the Commonwealth with so many, many things. And I'm just learning most of them, obviously, as you know. I'm the interim veterans agent, so I don't know it all.
Joanne,
Yes.
I'm gonna assume, tell me if I'm saying something wrong.
No, it's okay.
That all of your clients are on military disability. I don't know what the right, I mean, they're being compensated in terms of,
Some of them are. They're not always. There's actually a terminology called van scamp, which is a veteran
scamp?
aid van scamp. Skip. Well, not scamp, because there's no P in it. It's VANSCP. It's a non-service related program that the veteran can get assistance through. So that if they have a disability of some type, it's not necessarily related to when they were in the service, but subsequent to that, there's a disability. They have that program available to them. Based upon the number of, most of them are of retirement age, and they all collect Social Security or SSI disability, or a combination of both. A great many of them are below the threshold so that they're on Mass Health or MedX plans. They don't have a lot of money. It's really quite sad to see how low the threshold is. I'm not a veteran, but I'm glad I don't have that ability to apply either, because there isn't a lot that we can give them.
I agree, but, so, this is, what we do with the cities and towns is supplemental to a great extent?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And as I said, it's called VISMIS, which is Veteran Service Municipal something. I don't know what it means exactly, because that's the acronym, but it's their software. And that was developed in the last 5 years. And when you come in for benefits, you sit down, in this case with me now, and eventually with the veterans agent, and you go page by page, and then the agent enters all the data, or tells you what you need to bring in. What we've tried to do is make it easy on the veteran, because a lot of them have difficulty asking for help. Most people have difficulty asking for help. It's even more difficult for people with disabilities or with, service-related injuries. But they come, we try to tell them ahead of time what they need to bring in, and we sit down with them, we go through all of it, and it's very simple now with this program. I put it in, I hit the button, and boom, it tells me what they're gonna get. So I had a lady come in a couple weeks ago, she's a widow, and she was ecstatic because she's gonna get some fuel benefits. She said to me, "Now I can eat." She said, "This winter killed me." So, it's very sad. But, so, we just provide such an amazing service, and that's the reason that the town administrator obviously left us out of the cut category. And also because it would be crazy to cut, because we're gonna penalize ourselves. It's that old saying, cut off your nose to spite your face.
I think few people would argue the fact that they deserve it.
So does anybody have any questions for me?
I will tell you one thing.
Yes, sir.
You're a lot prettier than the last three veterans agents that we've had, even on an interim basis.
I do have one question.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, so reimbursement, what percent do we get reimbursed again? You said
75%.
75, okay.
Every dollar that we spend, we get 75 cents back.
Okay.
And it's on the subsequent cherry sheet, so we're basically a year behind
Gotcha.
in our funding, our revenue source. But
Thanks.
Okay. Mark?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, first of all, publicly, you have to understand, Joanne Cathcart is filling in as interim veterans agent in addition to doing all the other jobs that she does in our office. And we're very concerned. You especially know the history that we've had, and the charts that Joanne gave you showed how our claims have skyrocketed the last couple of years compared to the state. We're very, very cautious. So that's why I'm recommending at this time that we level service this department. However, I will tell you that as the result of the efforts in house cleaning and straightening out of things that Joanne has done over the past month, has been tremendous. But we won't know until probably August what the effects of these house cleaning has been. There's a possibility that we may be able to come back at the October town meeting and actually reduce this budget, but we can't do it now. It's just too risky. And I say that because, as you know, we go into the budget with some revenue assumptions, especially in the area of new growth and of local receipts. We're not getting good news on new growth, and we may have to, in October, when we balance out the books, may have to make a downward adjustment. And so if we can adjust an expense category to offset that, it would be beneficial. But as it stands now, it's too risky for us. We just don't have enough things caught up. A lot of these cases are still under review at the state level. So that's why we really need to keep it where it is for the time being. I appreciate your support.
Mark, how close are we for a new veterans agent?
Matter of fact, the advertisements finished last week. We have 20 applicants, and we start that process on Monday afternoon.
Good.
Looking and getting, my guess is it's gonna take a few weeks by the time we go through the applications and interview people.
John?
Paul, I just want to kind of add a little bit to how important the veterans agent is to the town. Being on the Board of Health, we've had a lot of cases of boarding in the community with some of our senior citizens. And there's been cases where it's veterans, World War II veterans or Korean War veterans that are involved with the hoarding, and they're a very proud group. They don't like to ask for help, and so the veterans agent, whenever we run into a situation, they're very, very helpful in finding help for those veterans. So a lot of times they end up spending time in the hospital to get better and that type of thing. And so it's a valuable tool and a valuable commodity that the town has.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, building inspector. Early.
I don't understand.
Okay, do you wanna wait?
Why we are so,
Last time you waited, I think it was a little while.
understand why we're, at the meetings where we specifically said, it's unacceptable.
Because it wasn't asked until last week. You weren't here that meeting, but Mary asked for all of it, and we would have all asked for it, but that's what happened. Mary asked to do 3 divisions. And,
What? He asked that they bring research.
yes, that he provide the information, what's the impact if we cut
Need one more?
reduced.
No, I know what we're doing here. I wanna know why we're getting it at the meeting and not already have it to review.
He just didn't want me to know what was going on. He just didn't want me to know what was going on.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The packet that you just received, as you can see on the front, there's everything there that the Finance Committee had requested. If you'd like, the first 2 pages are the employee job descriptions. If you go to the 3rd page, Building Department, it's an explanation of everything that your committee had asked for. If you'd like, I'll read that aloud from the start, if you'd like.
No, I don't think.
No? Not necessary? Okay.
Wait a minute, how about,
Well, maybe.
not read so much as just explain?
Okay. I think it might just take a minute, and I think it'd probably be best if I could just read through it.
And where are we on this page?
Yes, we're at that page right there.
Where it's
yeah.
got the percentage?
Yeah. The town building inspectors are mandated by the state of Massachusetts to enforce compliance with 780 CMR, the building code, 521 CMR, the Architectural Access Board, Chapter 48 Massachusetts Zoning Act, and the North Attleborough zoning bylaws. The town's plumbing/gas inspectors are mandated to enforce compliance with 248 CMR, I got to have that backwards, the Massachusetts Fuel and Gas Plumbing Code. The town's electrical inspectors are mandated to enforce compliance with 527 CMR, the Massachusetts State Electrical Code, and the 2008 National Electrical Code. It is the building inspector's responsibility to review all building permit applications and accompanying materials within a 30-day time frame. This can often be a time-consuming process depending on the type and complexity of the applications. Failure to issue permits within the state-mandated 30-day time frame could result in permits being administratively granted by default. Permits that are granted by default do not allow the inspectors the opportunity to examine the applications and plans for conformance with applicable state codes and zoning bylaws. This leaves the town and its residents vulnerable to potentially unsafe conditions as well as non-compliance issues with both state building code and town's zoning bylaws.
Excuse me. You just said, if I understood this,
Yeah.
right, that if you don't do it within the 30 days, they can proceed, but they're still subject to every inspection.
Yes, when a building permit application is submitted, you have 30 days, calendar days from that day. If the building permit is not, issued within that 30-day time frame, the applicant can begin work. It is still the applicant's responsibility to comply with zoning bylaws and state building codes. But when that does happen, you're putting the cart before the horse, and it creates a lot of problems from the very beginning to the very end. So it makes it difficult. In most building permit applications, not all, but in most, there's always something. There's always something missing. There's always something that's not compliant. So for us to have to do this after the fact makes it very difficult and could be costly for not just the town, but for the developer too. So it's very unfair to the developer as much as it is the town. So, but you're right, it is their responsibility. It's not as though they can just build whatever it is they are building, whatever way they want, and it's not as though they can ignore the zoning bylaws. That's not the case.
Have you missed any?
No, not since I've been there. We've never gone beyond the 30 days. In fact, I would say 50% of most of our building permits are issued right at the counter. And the other 50% are usually 3 to 7 days. It never goes anywhere near 30 days. So far, so good. All permit applications received and/or issued must be entered into the GEO system that has been established for the purpose of tracking, monitoring, and reporting all construction and development within the town. Up-to-date data must be entered into the system on a daily basis for the following reasons. 1, to ensure that accurate, up-to-date data is accessible when inspectors against those permits are requested by contractors. Staff relies on the accuracy of this data in order to verify the protocol is being followed through the various phases of the projects and to verify that the authorized contractor / agent is overseeing the project. 2, all scheduled inspections must be routinely entered into the system and forwarded to the applicable inspectors for their daily inspection schedules. Once inspected, the results are entered into the system for tracking through completion of the projects. This data becomes a permanent record within our files. 3, the permit data is utilized to generate weekly reports detailing the types of inspections performed and applicable fees collected to be used when determining wages for the electrical, gas, plumbing inspectors, and weekly payrolls. All permit fees collected, building, electrical, gas, plumbing, must be entered into the Munis system, cross-checked with GEO data, and turned over to the town treasurer at the close of each week. In summary, in order for the permit tracking system to be effective and allow for efficient operation of the department, updated information must be entered in a timely manner. As requested, we have provided the following 3 scenarios based on the budgetary options presented to us. And below you have the 3 separate bullets indicating the 4.09, 17.50, and 38.26.
Rod,
I can read those, or if it's not necessary.
well, what's your staff now?
Right now, our staff is, we have 1 full-time building commissioner, myself, 1 full-time local building inspector. We have a full-time office manager.
I'm sorry, back up. We've got you.
Yeah, we have a local inspector, which is more commonly known as the assistant building inspector.
Okay. Now I understand. More better hay, as they say in the old country.
So we have 2 building officials that are full-time. We have 2 clerks that are full-time. And we have 1 clerk that is part-time.
Is one of those clerks the office manager?
Yes, one of those clerks is the office manager. So we have 1 full-time office manager, 1 full-time clerk, and 1 part-time clerk.
What do you do at 4.9%? Do you cut anybody?
Well, a 4.09 cut to our level service budget would necessitate cuts to salaries and wages, as the department's general funds are already at a minimum amount required to meet the basic expenses. This cut would result in an 8-hour per week reduction in clerical staff, as well as the near depletion of funds allotted to pay part-time inspectors for emergency call-out services. And if you look on attachment 1, you can see in attachment 1 what that would result in for a cut. So the level services that we have now are 1,500, and that fund would be reduced to 578. And that fund, for those that aren't familiar with it, it's an amount of money that's allocated for emergency call-outs. So if there's a house that's damaged by fire, or a vehicle maybe struck a building, and the fire department or the police department requests the plumbing inspector, gas inspector, electrical inspector to attend, we have to pay those inspectors for that visit, and that money is used for that. Depending on the amount of time that they're at the scene would dictate how much money they pay.
And which way has overall volume been going in the department? Is it
Excuse me?
the volume of activity in the department? Has it been Pretty level? Or?
Well, this has been an unusual winter with the snow that we've had. So this winter, I would say that in my 7 years being here, I would say it was probably the slowest ever. And I think most of it is from the snow.
Right.
The last couple of weeks, we've been very busy with many things that probably would have been done or started during the winter months, but was virtually impossible because of the amount of snowfall and the ground being covered with snow for such a long period of time put a lot of people behind schedule.
Yeah.
So, it's been an unusual winter. Bad start to calendar year 2015.
So if you went to the 17%, you'd eliminate one of the full-time clerks?
Yes, yep.
And reduce the part-time?
Yep.
By 3 hours. Is that in addition to the 4.5%, or is that starting from your level funded budget?
If you look at, it's not an addition, so they're separate. So
Okay.
the 4.09 is.
All goes back to the original?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Yep, you're right.
Not often. And at 38%?
And at 38, it would be just myself and my office manager in the office.
So it'd be down to 2 people.
Be down to 2 people. We would lose the building inspector that we just hired, and we would lose the full-time clerk, and it would just be Linda and I.
In addition to that, you have the plumbing, electrical, and I assume the plumbing and the gas inspector do both the same person.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
But, and we don't compensate them per se, they get 75% of their fees?
Yeah, they're paid through a revolving account, so they're paid, depending on what the permit amount is, they're paid 75% of the permit fee, and the other 25% stays within the town. So they're paid through their revolving accounts established by the permit fees. And that's it.
So if you had to let, say, a full-time person go, would this be a delay with everything, right? So in terms of the time, the amount of time it takes to process, or is there any?
Yeah, I mean, if we lay one clerk off, then that means that remaining clerk has to take on all of that person's responsibilities. And it's not just the administrative work and the entering of data that's nonstop all day long, but it's waiting on people at the counter. It's conversations on the telephone. So it would affect the entire dynamics of our system department by just laying that one person off. So it creates a workload twice as difficult for the person that's there. And the same thing would be applicable to laying off one building official of 2. It would create twice as much work for that one person.
Do you have a time limit? You explained the time limit in approving plans. Do you have a time limit in terms of when requested to do an inspection that you have to perform it?
Yes, there's a 48-hour window, so if an applicant, permit holder requests an inspection and we don't get out there within a time frame, then the inspection is by default passed. So if there's an inspection, somebody calls for an inspection and we can't get out there for whatever be the reason, an inspector might be out sick, other things, emergency perhaps, then the inspection is considered passed by default. That's it, and that's a state law.
And how long is the time frame? Is it
48. 48.
48 hours? Okay, gotcha.
2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Any other
We're
questions?
generally out. When somebody calls for an inspection in my department, we're out the very next morning. Or if you call in the morning and you need it that day, we go out that afternoon. It's never, ever more than 24 hours. Sometimes it's a matter of 1 hour. So, and over the years, we've established, I think, a reputation for issuing permits quickly, doing inspections promptly, and there's never really much delay for either. The only time there's a delay is if the applicant creates the delay themselves. So.
Any other questions? Okay,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you, Rod.
Yeah, thanks, Rod.
All right, Council on Aging.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the potential cuts and what they would mean to the Council on Aging. I'd like to recognize a few people in the audience, if you don't mind. Joe Viola is the board chairman. Nancy Shevchuk is the vice chairperson. And we have Debbie Kennedy with us, she's a board member, and Barbara Harmon is a board member. And Anne-Marie Letourneau is the administrative secretary, and Julia Wheatley is the outreach worker. I provided a lot of information for you ahead of time. I'm hoping everybody was able to read it. Mostly statistical data and a lot of information about what the senior center does for the seniors in the community. It does much more than provide a place for them to come for lunch and activities. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes things that happen. And if you could look at the page that I did with a couple of case studies, the reason I picked those case studies was because if we get to the 38.26% cut, it would mean that we would lose the outreach worker and the program assistant. So I wanted to just let you know that the senior center case studies, it's what most clients are complex and have many issues. So statistics do not tell you the amount of time that working on a case can involve. Oftentimes it is working with multiple agencies and making many back and forth phone calls to client, family members, and community resources to get to the end result. These case studies are provided to give you some insight into the process of assisting the aging population. The case number one, client reports not having money to buy food, a bus pass, or having funds to participate in senior center activities. Client eats daily at the center and staff pitch in to buy the person a bus pass. The client receives a Social Security check and a pension check monthly. Lives with family, which client indicates takes those checks and gives her minimal money. Julia and I, the outreach worker and the director, are mandated reporters by state law. If we don't report something that someone tells us about financial or abuse exploitation, we can go to jail or face a fine. So as a mandated reporter, Julia filed the case with Bristol Elder Services. They meet with the client and open a case investigating the accusation. After many phone calls and meetings, a positive resolution for the senior is finally achieved. Case study number two. 2 calls from concerned citizens that they rarely see their elderly neighbor out and that the senior lives alone. A call from a friend of the elder stating more help is needed than can be provided. A call to the elder reveals the elder has no heat and has not for at least 2 months during the winter months. After numerous calls, the outreach worker was able to get 150 gallons of oil delivered, and because the furnace went dry, we had to also pay money to have it primed. Collaboration with the Board of Health and the food pantry to address the state of the property and the need for items from the pantry. An elder at risk call is made, and Bristol Elder Services makes another trip to North Attleborough to visit an elder. We put Meals on Wheels in place to address the food issue. Drivers often report that they had concerns about the well-being of the client, which are followed up with calls to the client and Bristol Elder Services. Every time a Meals on Wheels driver comes back and says to one of my staff or myself that they were concerned about somebody, all of our Meals on Wheels people have a caseworker from Bristol Elder Services. So we automatically call them and report the concern. The client is eventually removed from the home and placed in a rehab until a permanent safe placement can be found. Case number 3. Client comes to the center because client needs hearing aids and cannot afford them. Client is also legally blind. He is assisted in the application for hearing aids, which we work closely with the Lions Club. They provide hearing aids for seniors. She had to arrange numerous rides and appointments and make dozens of phone calls to accomplish getting the hearing aids. Referral made to the Mass Commission for the Blind for assistive devices. Client begins to attend the center regularly for meals and assistance as needed. Further interaction reveals he is being financially exploited by a family member living with him. Client becomes a Bristol Elder Service protected client after a report was made by the outreach worker. Daily management of clients' well-being, including phone calls, appointment, and socialization, have been provided by all of the Council on Aging staff. Client had a fire in the home which rendered the home unlivable. That happened around Thanksgiving, and Julia spent most of that Thanksgiving weekend trying to secure a place for the senior and his daughter to live. He wasn't eligible for housing, and he had a lot of physical limitations. He needed a lot of household items, and he needed assistance to even get things for the home. He continued to rely on the senior staff, center staff support until his death. These are what we deal with probably every day. So these aren't just cases that we pull out of a hat. Probably everybody that comes into the senior center has 3 or 4 issues that they're trying to get assistance with. And it could be any one of us that might do that. And we only have the outreach worker for 19 and a half hours. And most of the communities around us have a full-time outreach worker, 2 part-time outreach workers, or much more than what we do, and they serve a lot less seniors. So that concerns me because with the different cuts, and I know I've covered a lot of information so that you would know different things that we do, but actually I'm a member of the Mass Council on Aging, and that's a statewide organization that COA directors belong to. I'm actually a member of the board. And in 2008, we started a new task force to save our senior center task force because we were realizing that a lot of the state and local budget cuts were really impacting the level of services that we could provide for our seniors. So I ask you to remember that we service 4,540 seniors that live in town. That's how many 60 and older currently live in town.
How many again?
4,540. Now that's according to the census from 2010. And of course, each year the baby boomers are aging, and so that we're adding more. So I believe the last census it was, I want to say 3,800 or something like that, and so it increased in 10 years quite a bit. So we get our formula grant from the state based on the number of seniors that we have. When I started, we were getting $5 per senior. And now it's, hopefully this year, it's passed, the state reps passed the budget, but the Senate hasn't yet on that. We've been pushing from the Mass Council on Aging Board of Directors to get it up to $9, which we're pretty sure is going to happen this year. And by 2018, we'd like to see it to be up to $12 a senior. And the reason that we're pushing that is because we feel the state, if the towns are going to take away, we need the state to help us out so that we can keep our senior centers and our seniors served. I also want to point out that we service a large range, whereas the school maybe has students for 12 to 13 years. We have them for 40 plus years. Many of them come to us when they're 55, and we have one lady that still comes to the senior center that's 103, or 104 now, 105. Lose track of it. and she comes once a week. So it's a big age range that we're trying to provide services for. So I know that you've been listening to people for a few nights and you're probably tired. So I'm not going to go into all the things that I've provided, but I do want to talk a little bit about the impact that the budget cuts would have on us. And I've been before you over the years. I've been here 11 years, and I've always made it a point to come to the Finance Committee meeting, basically to let you know that we can survive the cuts. And because we can use the formula grant from the state however we see fit. So if my budget got cut for program supplies or the newsletter printing, I can just say to the state, I'd like to take this money and use it this way. And there are a few things we can't do, but for the most part, we can do just about anything, as long as we get approval. So we've done, over the years, we've done a lot of things that we would normally probably ask the town to do, that we've done on our own with the formula grant money, such as putting in a new handicap ramp. This year, we're trying to put in an automatic door opener at the handicapped entrance, and we've done new floors in the senior center, all with state money. If we get the 38.26 cut, that's going to impact the formula grant, which we will be probably using most of it for salaries, or all of it. We could live with the 4.9% cuts because of the formula grant. We would be able to keep our staff at the current level, but we would probably have to restrict some of the programming to do that we subsidize. Like, we asked for a donation for chair yoga or line dance and Tai Chi, those kind of programs. And we put out a box with a hole in it, and they can put whatever they feel they can provide. And we make a suggested donation of, say, $2 per class. And then we pay the rest with the formula grant. Well, a lot of the seniors can't afford even the $2. So if I use it for staffing, which I feel the town should provide the staffing for the senior center, if I use it for staffing, I'm going to be taking it away from the seniors who are in need of having those programs available to them. So the most devastating cut would be the 38.26, which I'm sure you already know that, because that would eliminate the outreach worker and the program assistant completely. We'd use the formula grant almost in all of it to fund the administrative secretary, she's full-time, and myself. The nutrition site manager, who takes care of the Meals on Wheels and the congregate lunch, is fully funded by the stipend from Bristol Other Services. That wasn't the case when I started here. The town paid for the nutrition site manager up until I think it was about 2009 or 2010, when Bristol started providing one, and now they have given us the money to have our own employees, so we can have the luxury of picking out who would like to work with us. So that would be about what would happen. But some of the other things are, we would no longer be able to afford our cleaning company at all, and it would fall on existing two staff members, Emery and I, to keep the building clean. We wouldn't have any program supply money at all. Our mileage would be reduced to the bare minimum to cover myself traveling to mandated meetings. Our newsletter, which cost approximately $4,000 a year, it's a bi-monthly newsletter, we would have to eliminate entirely. And we would have to refer people for shine counseling to the Attleborough COA, where there is a regional shine counselor there. I wanted to just point out that what shine is, it's a very important, it brings in a lot of people, especially during open enrollment every year between October and December. seniors have the opportunity to change their Medigap
Oh, yeah, the Medigap or.
insurance. So what Julia does is puts all their prescription drugs into the computer and counsels them on which one is going to be the best plan for them to have that's going to cost them the least amount of money or the least amount of co-pays. So only once a year during open enrollment, and so everybody wants to come to the senior center during open enrollment so they can get a chance to do that.
Including me. Including me.
Including yes. I didn't want to say that, but since you brought it up, yes, including you. SHINE stands for Serving the Health and Informational Needs of Elders. So what the SHINE counselor does is give unbiased health insurance counseling to Medicaid beneficiaries of all ages. She screens and assists in applications for public benefits, answers questions regarding Medicare eligibility, enrollment periods, and benefits, assists with Medicare appeals, and during open enrollment, she assists with plan changes and new enrollment. Every year, people turn of age that they can get prescription coverage. And she completes applications and follows up with the appropriate agencies. A lot of the work that is done by that person is very time consuming. On the computer, she could spend an hour and a half just researching what drug plan would be the best one for the senior. And there's extensive training for that, which, by the way, the regional office is going to be hosting that training at North Attleborough Senior Center in the next month or so. They have volunteers, but personally, you would never get me to volunteer to do that job. It's really time consuming, and it's a lot of information to process. People come in with bills that they've received that they don't know if they're supposed to be responsible for or not. And it's time consuming to call all the different agencies, insurance companies to find out, what they should be paying. And oftentimes they come and they've already paid thousands of dollars on something that Julie will say, you don't need to pay any of that because your insurance, your Medigap insurance covers that for you. And I also wanted to point out that we're the only social service agency in the town that services the seniors. I mean, a lot of our seniors we share with the Board of Health and Lenore's Pantry. So, but they come to us on a different level. So I just took a couple of other notes. If we were to get the 17.35% cut, we would have to allocate more funds to cover the salary, which would just leave over about $5,000 to use for programming, or if we decided to keep the newsletter. That would reduce the outreach worker to 15 hours a week and the program assistant to 15 hours a week. We would reduce our cleaning company to twice weekly, and staff would clean as needed. We would eliminate our program supplies and reduce our mileage. We would supplement the program supplies as best as we can with our revolving account. I just want to point out that currently we have just a little over $10,000 in our revolving account. It comes from newsletter donations from events like the Senior Spectacular that Representative Poirier did. She donated $3,000 last year, and several years ago, $2,000 from the proceeds of that event. And oftentimes, in lieu of flowers, when people pass away, the family requests that donations come to the senior center. So those aren't, the 10,000 is there now, but we don't know if it's going to be there next week or the week after, if we have to start using revolving account to fund things that should be included in our budget. And lastly, I wanted to just provide something about, we have more than 40 volunteers who logged in over 2,300 hours to date this fiscal year. They are Meals on Wheels drivers, congregate meal helpers, activities, friendly visitors, and our board of directors. The Senior Tax Work-Off Program offers seniors age 60 and over a $500 tax abatement in exchange for working. This year it will be 55 hours. I completely administer that program. And the vast majority of the people that work, probably 50% of them work at the senior center. So doing volunteer work. We couldn't handle the first two cuts. The third cut was devastating. I don't know if you have any questions.
If I may, Tim? I'm jumping to a conclusion that when people would be eligible, I'm gonna use like either food stamps or Medicaid, that you would plug them, if they didn't already have it, you would plug them into this and help them with the application and all that.
That's part of
Part of the services, you didn't say that, so I didn't pick it up, so.
Generally what happens is somebody will make an appointment with Julia. Julie's not in, and they come in to see me, and they come for counseling for Shine, for health insurance. Once you see what their income is, then generally speaking, Julie would say, you know, you're probably eligible for a lot more things. Right now, Mass Council on Aging just got some funding for a program called Benefits Checkup, and I'm planning on going to a training for that. And what that is it's a software system for federal programs. And I would take whatever information, say, you gave me and plug it all in, and it would print out all the programs that the senior is eligible for. It doesn't do applications for them, but it tells them you may be eligible for food stamps, special help on your Medicare, fuel assistance, whatever it is that they're, and it would just print that out. And it would make it easy, because now you've kind of like you have to apply and get it that they're not eligible for a lot of things. I mean, you have a basic idea, but income's a funny thing. It doesn't always tell the clear financial status of the senior. They could have a high income, but they could have high co-pays, a lot of medical bills. So, and that's what usually brings them to the senior center, is a crisis. And sometimes they call up and say, I don't have any insurance effective tomorrow. Can you see me today? So,
and since you have nothing better to do.
So I just feel that, in closing, I'd like to just say that I feel my department is a very important department in the community. And I would like to, keep it with the staff that we need. I can't possibly, and neither can Anne Marie and I both, we couldn't possibly do all the work that gets done and clean the building, to staff, and the number of people that come in. So that's why I provided some of the statistical information as far as how many people come for each of those different things. And our Meals on Wheels program, I mean, we're the only community in the Bristol County area that has complete volunteers completely deliver Meals on Wheels. All the other ones have paid drivers. So the town doesn't have to pay anything for those 60 to 80 people that get Meals on Wheels, other than, well, actually we get mileage now from Bristol, all the services as well. Last year when we were negotiating with them, I asked for an increased amount of mileage, and they gave it to us this year. So the Meals on Wheels program is pretty much basically funded by Bristol, all the services. But Anne Marie manages the volunteers. We have 40 volunteers, and if somebody calls in the morning and says they're not going to be able to deliver today and not feeling good, then she has to try to find someone else. And oftentimes, the staff at the senior center go out and deliver meals, especially in the winter. Many of our drivers are seniors themselves. One man is going to be just turned 91, I think. He's been delivering for 35 years. He delivers to people that are younger than him. He does a wonderful job. So. And they are our eyes and ears of the community. That's how we find out what is happening with the seniors in town and who's our frailest. If we had a paid driver, not everybody that's a paid driver is going to care as much as the volunteers care. And they come back and report things to us, little things that may not mean anything to someone else. They noticed there was a big difference, and possibly there's something going on with the seniors' health or mental health, whatever it might be.
Anybody, any questions?
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
I got a question for you. Yeah, I got a question for you. Hearing aids, could you use old hearing aids?
I'm sorry?
Could you use old hearing aids? Hearing aids, could you use hearing
We
aids?
collect them, but have a box, Lions Club has a box there, for glasses and hearing aids, but we don't collect them, they do.
Okay, because,
I think they use them.
If you bring them in and put them in the box, they take them and they actually send them, they refurbish them and send them to foreign countries actually.
yeah,
So
oh,
they'll
okay,
come and pick them up.
okay,
Yeah, we've had the box for a while.
okay, because I got, I'll tell you how many pair at home.
We were okay.
These all pairs that I've had. Yes,
Could, so
yeah,
North
come
TV,
on down to the microphone.
They want to see your face.
lovely face.
Well, thank you, thank you. As a board member, and I've been on a lot of boards, I have never seen a group of people at this organization do the work that they do like they do. It's amazing what they get done with just so few assets. And if they didn't have the volunteers, like many of the senior centers around here, what we do is volunteer work. They have hired staff for most of those positions. Some have social workers full-time, 30, 40 hours a week. And one thing that we're not looking at to the future is if we look at Erickson's life stages, you know, there's the old and there's the young old and the old. We don't have time to really go out and recruit the young old at an earlier stage in the late 50s, early 60s, to come in and talk to them about the programs that might be available to them, whether it's just changing into Medicare from regular insurance. And we don't have the time to do all the forward work that all the other senior centers around the area are doing. So I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kathy Kalikia, and I'm the HR Director for the Town of North Attleborough and the School Department. And I want to thank you for letting me take the time to speak about human resources. I'm happy to talk through the services that we provide to the town. I'm not so happy to talk through what the cuts will, or how the cuts will impact our department, but I will do that. What I've given you is a two-page summary of a little bit of a highlight of our department and an explanation of where I see the cuts, along with an attachment that is a wage sheet that breaks up a number of different columns with the cuts. And I've given you our job descriptions and the human resources bylaw that sets up my duties. The 3 job descriptions you have are for the other 3 staff members in human resources. That is a full-time administrative secretary, a full-time benefits coordinator, and our 19-hour department clerk. So I'd like to begin, as I said, just highlighting what we do, what services we provide, so that when you hear, what's cut, it might make some sense or come together. I'm going to do that by, in the handout that I gave you just a paragraph of our mission. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just highlight the areas that we provide service in.
Could I ask you interrupt you one quick question?
Absolutely.
You're one of the few people that do both the school and general government, is that correct?
We are about one of 6 in the whole state of Massachusetts that does that. yes.
Well, when I said one, I was talking about the town, I didn't know. But you handle both, right?
We handle both, yeah. Yeah, but, yeah, of the town of North Attleborough is, you know, one of 6 towns, I think, in the whole state. I think it's just 6 right now, but.
And is your budget funded at all? Any part of your budget funded by the school department?
It is not. And if I might highlight, I gave you the HR bylaw, so this department was set up in 1998, the department as it is now. Prior to that, I'm not sure what the school did for human resources. I know there was not a human resources department. So I believe some of the duties were segregated between maybe the business manager or the assistant superintendent. I'm not really sure. There's a payroll office. On the town side, there was an administrative secretary, but a 5-member personnel board, and I believe an executive secretary in the Board of Selectmen office that handled health insurance. So back in 1998, there was some forward thinking on behalf of the town that they could standardize some processes by joining, both. And I think part of the sales pitch, when you ask about the funding, I think the sales pitch was the funding at the time to get this department set up in the school building, so that then it would be utilized by the schools, because it was really unique, I think, at the time to get something like that done. So I'm guessing that's why it was set up that way. The funding, was done by the town, and in an effort to try to gain support for it being utilized by the school department. And it certainly has. They utilize the heck out of our department. We are busy all the time. I'm just going to quickly read our mission. It's the mission of the Human Resources Department to provide quality customer service to all employees and the general public for all human resources needs in the areas of employment, recruitment, hiring and selection, benefits, compensation, labor relations, employee relations, labor negotiation, workers' compensation, and unemployment. And then we have another nice line that I won't add. You have that in front of you. So as I said, that is the history of what we do. I just want to highlight how that breaks down in those areas that I just pointed out. Employment and recruitment. We do all of the employment advertisement for both the school and the town. We receive the request to post form from department heads or the superintendent. We review the posting. We, make sure it's in compliance with the union contracts. Everybody's a little different in terms of timelines and requirements to post internally. So there's a lot of preliminary work done before you then see what we put up on our HR website, which is that job posting. We also email all staff on the town side and on the school side a copy of the postings. We will handle all the employment advertising for any positions. And we, 2 years ago now, might be 3, have started utilizing the School Spring program for receiving applications for the school department jobs. It is yet another kind of task we took on. It is a program that we need to manage internally. We give permissions, for example, to department heads to view applications that come in, but it has allowed us to receive really a lot of quality applications, especially for those harder to fill positions like science and math and teachers. So it really is a wonderful tool. The principals love it. They're able to get most of the applications in that manner sent to them, although we have kept our HR staff website to receive applications, and we allow people to still bring them in. So we haven't eliminated any of the other processes we had. We didn't want to throw up any blocks. I think a lot of school departments have done that. They've required that folks only apply through School Spring. We've kept it open. So when we get all the applications in HR, we will forward the package to department heads. And again, that's on the town side too. We receive all applications, make all the copies, send them out to department heads. Department heads will use us, many of them, to screen the applications or to help out with the interview process, or just help them with general questions. I get an awful lot of questions from boards or commissions who don't, necessarily recruit or hire an awful lot. So we talk them through that. So that's the job posting piece. And just as an aside, in my annual report, I put down that we received about 5,000 applications in the year 2014. So just to give you an idea of the volume that we get from folks. We deal with hiring and selection. We do, as I said, resume screening. We send the folders to the hiring managers. We will assist in the process. We do all the offer letters to town employees. And that, involves talking with department heads about salary discussions before the offer letter is produced. I personally interview school substitutes. Those are all the folks who want to help out when our employees are absent in the school department as a teacher or as a para. I do those interviews on Tuesday mornings, and I work with the sub-coordinator, who is that person that calls in folks to assist in the school department. We then create an Excel spreadsheet that we maintain weekly of all the school subs that's sent out to all the school principals and all the school admins, so they are able to utilize that, as well as the sub-coordinator. So that's kind of another piece that we grab onto. We also in HR maintain a list of all the school volunteers. Right now we've got about 1,700 people who are parents that are helping out in our schools. We maintain that list because we are the folks that handle the criminal records check. So that list tells the admins and the principals who they can actually use in their schools for parent volunteers. We send all of the personnel action forms to the treasurer's office for any and all employee changes, changes of address, any tax changes or whatnot. We do a quarterly headcount report, one of which you have as an attachment. So just to give you an idea of the scope of staff that we're dealing with, on that headcount report you have the school department made up of 620 full and part-time employees and 481 seasonal and substitute employees. And town government made up of 324 full and part-time employees and 641 seasonal employees. So altogether about 2,000 roughly employees that we are processing all through human resources and maintaining all of their personnel files and doing all of their paperwork and making any changes to any of their statuses with the treasurer's office. So that's kind of some big numbers I'm throwing out there. I mentioned the Corey criminal records check. We also do a sexual offender records check. We now have started with fingerprinting. That is now a requirement of school department employees that we run a fingerprint from the national system, national database. So what that means is everybody's coming into HR for Corey and Sori, filling out a form. We're putting it on a spreadsheet, tracking that every 3 years, as well as those 1,700 parent volunteers. And the fingerprinting is, although we throw a column on that same sheet, it's a completely separate process. I personally am taking on kind of that administrative task. I receive all the emails with all the records. I will then plug it into that spreadsheet. And we are now rolling it out with all the school employees over the next 2 years. So it's kind of crazy busy. I am now getting fingerprinting just to add, to the burden. And this will all make sense when I tell you that we might need to cut or where we cut. I get fingerprint records from people I will never see. Why? Because it costs $35 and the state has advised, folks when they're putting in for fingerprints to list at least 10 towns that you think someday you might want to be involved in. So you only have to pay this fee once. So I'm getting fingerprints from people I'll never see who might eventually end up in North Attleborough, and I'm filing them. So that's just more.
Excuse me, so somebody could apply, just look right next door to Attleborough, they'll list North Attleborough, and you still have to get the fingerprints verified?
I will receive their record in my email.
You will receive it?
Yes.
But you don't have to pay the $35, right?
They pay the
Attleborough,
$35. The employees are responsible.
Oh, the employees.
Employees themselves. It depends on the school system. I think most school systems are having the employees pay for that because most school systems are in, budget situation like us.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Then we deal with benefits. The very big number, the 8.7 million for this year is, although you don't see it anywhere on HR's cut, it is my budget to handle. I am the one that projects the figure because we're managing all of the employees' health insurance. So I work with the town administrator. We do run the projections. It gets very tight. I know over the years there's been some comments made at town meeting or after. Well, there's always some money left in town, in the health insurance line. Every year it gets tighter and tighter. We're very good about running detailed projections that I use. I have records going back 10 years, and I kind of narrow it to the average of the past 5 years, how many people I added on to the rolls. This year I'm projecting a $10,000 surplus by the end of the year. which is nothing. It's so tight. You know, in prior years, it might have been 100, because it's hard to predict when people come on the rolls. And every year I try to make that projection, but if somebody's not coming in right at July and they come in half the year, it's not as much as what we've projected. So anyways, I say that to say there's a lot of work behind trying to get that number right, keeping it really tight, and this year we're probably the most tight, you know, in a good way for the town. But we are the folks with my benefits coordinator who are looking, you know, bringing in all those folks, not only signing them up during employee orientation and explaining what the benefits are, we then have the fun task of receiving the bill from Southeastern Mass or Blue Cross, doing a download of employee deductions from the payroll, matching that up against the bill on a monthly basis, and making sure that we're collecting what we're paying out to Blue Cross. And there's 636 subscribers. So it's crazy. And in that mix is 10-month employees of the school department who don't have a 48-week deduction that makes sense to us by looking at it on the computer. We have to go and calculate about 72 people separately and make sure they're catching up on their deduction. So it's quite a big process, and that's what's involved in health insurance. We also, you know, have life insurance bills that we're reconciling. And, you know, we do all the enrollment with the Southeastern Mass Health Group. You know, we deal with them as an agency, so. The next category I mentioned was compensation. We produce all of the, you know, salary projections for town negotiations. We coordinate all the across-the-board increases that come through with the treasurer's office. We're giving them lists of staff and, you know, showing them where they should be placed in the payroll. We maintain salary and wage sheets, kind of similar looking to the spreadsheet I gave you for each and every town department. We utilize it strongly during the budget process. We are the department that sends that to every town department. During the year, we maintain it. Somebody leaves, somebody's hired, we're changing the step date. You know, if the salary, somebody's at max, you know, and somebody new is coming in, we're putting an entrance right there. And by the time, you know, it's ready for budget time, we're handing it over to the department head with, you know, the most accurate and up-to-date salary figures that are there. So another big piece. We conduct, you know, salary surveys in preparation for negotiations. Under labor relations, employee relations, labor negotiation, I kind of put that all together. We recommend contract changes. One of the other handouts I gave you was all of our contracts. There are 13 in the town. 6 are in the school department, 7 are in the town. I sit on 11 negotiating committees, and I am the lead negotiator for 2 of them. So that's an awful lot of fun work. That's, you know, union proposals and kind of trying to view all of the contracts, you know, on the whole, and you know, looking at kind of fairness issues, and again, you know, just on a daily basis, and dealing with any questions that employees have or supervisors have about contracts. So.
Which 2 aren't you on?
I'm on the paraprofessional.
2 you're not on.
Which ones?
You said you're on 11 of 13. Which 2 aren't you?
I'm not on the cafeteria, school cafeteria, and school secretary. Because I gotta find some time to get some things done. They're very capable folks on those.
I wasn't questioning, I just...
Yeah, no, I'm just making light of all this work. So under labor relations, we have, you know, as I said, I recommend both to the superintendent and the town administrator any contract changes. I, you know, can prepare contract proposals. I do some memorandums of agreement, which are things that kind of crop up during the year that we feel like we need to cover with the union and get sign off for. You know, we right now have one for the mitigation account. Very involved in that. You know, that was that account that we set up to pay, reimburse folks for copay increases. That's actually ending this June. We met with all of the unions together and have an MOA for that effect. So I'm kind of the one that is responsible for getting that all processed and done. You know, we're doing all the FMLA, the family medical leave letters for town employees and sick bank letters for school and town employees. So there's an awful lot of letter writing going on in human resources. We handle the monthly, we receive from town departments, the monthly sick and vacation reports, and we're putting that on an attendance calendar for an annual kind of look-see that goes in the employee file. So we are constantly talking with department heads about time and attendance issues. We distribute annual evaluations and track that when they come in. And we handle random and post-accident drug testing for all of our CDL drivers on both the town side and on the school. We deal with workers' comp. We receive all injury reports. We work with the insurance carrier. Deal with, the treasurer's office with payroll issues relating to adjusting the pay. We report all of this out at a monthly safety meeting that we've set up with the town administrator and a number of department heads. And, we work with our consultant regarding safety issues. And last but not least, unemployment. We deal with filing the claims all online, paying the monthly bill, reconciling the monthly bill to make sure there's nobody on it that shouldn't be, which has been really a huge issue with the town, with the state unemployment. Notices going out to all the towns to really keep an eye on names that are just appearing out of the blue. It's a real problem that they're having with their system. So we have not had any, so we're good. Projecting every year, I have to project the annual expense for unemployment. We inform employees who are, resigning or terminating. We have a letter that goes to everybody that has to, give them their rights, which includes unemployment, but also benefits information. So that's kind of a, broad brush of all the, lots of things we accomplish with our staff.
What do you do with the other 2 days a week you got left over?
I'm tired just saying it. I'm like, so in the spreadsheet that you have, I broke down the 3 levels of cuts that you asked me to, and then I gave you another level of cut at 2.5%. I did that because at the top of my column, you will see that I feel like even though I'm not funded by the school department, I'm very much a school employee. We're housed in the school office. I attend all of the administrative meetings with my principals and superintendent, and we're very much a part of that group. So it's a little quirky and unique that it is fully funded by the town, but it is a department that is fully functioning on both sides. So I'd ask you to consider that if you're facing that 17% cut, where you're preserving the schools with the 2.5. So in my 2-page handout, I gave you the dollars of what will be, and I've highlighted the positions that will be cut in the hours on there in red. But I did take the time to describe that for you. So kind of beginning with the worst case scenario first, the 38% cut. I really just couldn't even articulate it. In my description to you, I said that 71 staff hours per week, and for everything I just described that we do, it just couldn't happen with maintaining any department intact. So I just put a line in there that says a decision over what services would need to be cut would require a discussion with both the school committee and the Board of Selectmen, because it's, again, a very unique department doing work on both sides. That couldn't happen. We couldn't do work for both. So there'd have to be a change in the bylaw and a discussion over what would happen, because what that would do is leave just one full-time person, the HR director, and one part-time person at 19 hours, and that's just not possible for any
And wouldn't your workload increase with any of these, any layoff scenarios in any department? I mean, it falls on you, yes? So you would require more, not less.
Absolutely. So that was the 38. I spent some time, I'm not gonna read through it. There's a paragraph in there under the 17.35 describing kind of what administrative processes would have to go away for us to be able to handle that. But I did just summarize for you, that would be 34 staff hours would be cut weekly under a 17.35. So that would be leaving an HR director and benefits coordinator full-time and laying off the full-time administrative secretary and reducing that position to 19 hours. And of course, laying off the part-time person completely. And if you see in the spreadsheet with the actual numbers, I kind of block out, I have 0 as the salaries in that position, and I've calculated what 19 hours would be. And then I have a small paragraph that talks about with the 4.09 and the 2.5, this would be something that's directly impacting our part-time person. Now, the reason you haven't heard me talk about non-personnel, although I did some minor cuts, my non-personnel is so little. It's roughly $4,000 for expenses that I deal with. There is a funding line that's in my department of $5,000 for employment advertising, but that's not mine to handle. That's, for department-wide employment advertising. So my own is $4,000, so I bring it down from level service 4797. I cut 700 under 2.5. I cut, not 700, I cut $90 off of that. I cut, a few more hundred off for the next level cut. So it's just so minimal that it's not worth really highlighting. And you can see where I would make those cuts on that. But so the 4.09 and 2.05 would be, under 4.09 would be 8 hours. My 19-hour part-time person would go down to 11 hours. And the 2.5 cut is going to keep my part-time person at just 4 hours, would cut my part-time person 4 hours per week from 19 to 11. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a typo there. 19 to 15 hours per week. Oh my gosh. So 15 hours per week on the 2.5. So in closing, I just want to say that I really sit in a unique position working for both the town and school. And I really just want to throw out, I know for you folks, you have the, I don't know if it's luxury because you're dealing with tough times here with folks in front of you, but you're able to see the heart and soul of department heads that are coming to you, and they're extremely articulate and they're very good at what they do. I see it daily, and I saw it when I walked in the doors of this town 14 years ago. And to me, you can judge somebody's character when they go through the tough times and how they handle themselves, not just when life is rosy. This town has been through some tough times in very recent years, and on both the town and school side, I'm blown away by the level of professionalism from all the department heads, the principals, and the employees. People are pulling together, they're not pointing fingers at each other, and they're not depleting the value of one department over another. They're just trying to get it done. And they're, just today I participated in a school department meeting to try to get this done, to really look at different scenarios. So I just want to throw out a compliment to all of my coworkers over how they're pulling to get this done. And I don't know that folks at home know all of that, so I just want to say that because I have that perspective on both sides. Any questions?
Thank you. Why doesn't the school pay part of your salary?
As I said, I think originally it was a sales pitch. You have to talk to the town administrator at the time, Jay Monahan, to get the
I think
real
Mark's
story.
trying to bail you out.
What's that?
Mark's trying to bail you out.
They don't pay for the same reason no other department pays. In other words, what's the sense of having to increase each department's budget to absorb another? We just set up the budget that way. The same reason that, the highway department, the water department, the sewer department, the fire department, none of them pay anything towards. This is a town position. It's not a government position and a school position. This is a town position, and it services all the departments. The same way the treasurer's department services all the departments. So, I don't think it would be fair to just pick out the schools and say they need to pay part of that position when all the departments proportionately take part of it. When we do indirect charges to the enterprise accounts, a portion of the expenses incurred in the Human Resources Department is assessed in that, so that water, sewer, solid waste are all contributing some money in their indirect charges that come back to the town that covers some of the expenses that they incur.
Okay.
I have a question. You mentioned you administer benefits, and I know a lot of that's contractual, whatever else, but is there any potential opportunity there for savings or, going out to bid, or I don't know how often you do that, but.
We, when I referred to benefits, I was thinking of health insurance benefits that we administer.
that's something, yeah.
We have done a number of different things over the years to really kind of reel that in, and we, along with, we can't control it just by ourselves. We're part of I think it's a 13-member community now with the Southeastern Mass Health Group. But, you know, we very recently, and Mark can give you more detail about it, negotiated with all the unions when the state gave us the ability to move to the Group Insurance Commission.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, in 2012. And we saved 600,000, 400,000?
Total of 800,000
over 2 years in health insurance. And prior to that, I want to say almost 3 or 4 years prior, we had made an adjustment to co-pays. So we really, and I'm hearing now the Group Insurance Commission is going up 9% in their costs because they didn't properly rate the amounts that they put for employee contributions. So, you know, we're kind of lucky the way we negotiated it down, but in that way, we've been able to pull our insurance advisory committee together, all the unions, and really get that done. So we've got some good numbers there.
Okay, I know a lot of it's union-type contractual issues, but, okay, thank you.
All right, you said you post job postings for the schools. Do you do that for the police or the fire? You do that for everybody also? You do it for every department in town?
Yeah, I did mention the fire. I do the civil service hiring for the, and I did the civil service hiring for the police department until they converted. So, the police have done their own postings.
Oh, that's right, Yeah, they changed.
Police have done their own.
So you are doing the same thing for
Posting,
everybody?
yeah. For the
It's
fire
just
department, it's civil service regulated, so it's
Yeah.
not a posting that you see on a board. It's
Right.
posted on the civil service.
Okay.
It's an exam process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question, I'm looking at the benefits coordinator under the 17.35% cut. You mentioned a chapter 32B, 9A, whatever, some sort of reimbursement. Is that a lot of money that?
Yeah, that's, I think it's 7,000 that we got in from other,
Okay.
not huge, but.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, that's a new law that passed 2 years ago that allows us, for towns, to charge back to other towns for retired people whose careers were split over multiple towns. So, for example, if somebody worked 10 years in the city of Attleborough and 10 years in the town of North Attleborough, then retired, we can go and charge the city of Attleborough for 50%.
Gotcha, okay.
But the same thing happens coming to us. We get charged.
Okay.
We collect money, but we also get charged that gets added to our health insurance number. If somebody leaves us and goes to another town, we're gonna end up getting an assessment charge from them.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Kathy.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
DPW.
So easy to mark, it's a long day. We had a great.
We get a lot long. Good evening, Mark Hallwell, Director of Public Works. Just wanted to briefly go over the functions of administration and highway. We met a few years ago and had a rather lengthy meeting to go over the intricate workings of the Department of Public Works, our water and sewer rates, and our capital programs. So we won't go through too much. Again, Administration Division provides financial management, human resources coordination, public communication, and coordinates services to other departments, as well as policymakers, staff, and citizens to help them make informed decisions about the infrastructure of the town. We have an infrastructure replacement value over $450 million that we are responsible for. And we oversee, obviously, 3 24-hour-a-day operations in water, sewer, and roadway drainage that we're responsible for. We have 55 employees. Again, we cover their payroll. We also coordinate operating programs, and we also deal with any state and local regulations that we're required to report on. And we also aid in the liaisons with other communities. Our highway division has a lot of functions. We do roadway maintenance, we do catch basin cleaning, roadside mowing, we have a compost facility, and obviously snow and ice operations. We have 14 employees over there. Previously, we had 3 different departments. We had a highway department, a forestry department, and a fleet department. Several years ago, those were consolidated into one department because we were no longer able to handle the functions individually. So now all of our employees have had professional chainsaw training, so they can all go out and be utilized however we need them. I had 2 mechanics out last week. I had 2 guys on injury, and 2 people were on vacation, and I'm short 2 people. So my mechanics were out doing potholes last week. It was actually a pretty good foreshadowing if we go towards the 38%. But they are truly a group who their function is anything that is open within the town. We are the labor of the town, and we're well aware of that. We do elections operations. We do set up and take down for the elections in previous years, and that's been part of our overtime budget. We've also overseen Earth Day events in the past, assisted with Kids Day, Dana's downtown events, which they didn't have last year, but in previous years we've had those, and a lot of other things that the town has needed bodies for, or the functions that we do, school department particularly, and those are all functions that we've done pretty much on our own time within our own budget. Over the past couple of years, we have had to go towards, with the school department, if they need an operator and we just don't have the time. My laborers work 4 days a week. I have that information in there about the work hours for everyone. If we don't have time to fit in the schedule that will work with them, we've asked them to pay for them to come in on a Friday. We pay for the equipment, and they pay for the person for the day. And it's worked out pretty well. And it is unfortunate, I think Kathy mentioned, I know some of the other people in here have mentioned it, that as things have gotten tougher and tougher in town, the departments have worked better and better together. When I first came here, I mentioned it today, it was like the Red Sox in the 80s. It was 9 different cats. Every department kind of did their own thing and only talked to each other when they needed to. And we all rely on each other for conservation helping us out to get things going for a project, or us helping Park and Rec, or even moving some stuff in the town hall. We really do work as one town these days. If you'd like, I'll go through the budget cuts, the proposed budget cuts. I did do a summary sheet just to sort of help out. Looking at highway and administration, I'm available to talk about water and sewer as much as you like as well. I'm not proposing cuts to this level to them. They did take cuts in the prior years. One thing that needs to be understood about the cuts that would fall under administration, 64% of administration's costs are repaid through the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund as indirects. So every year, the town accountant has a very large spreadsheet, which I'm sure he can make available to you. It's got all little nuggets of information about everyone's salary, hours of work, and there is a formula for each aspect of what they do. In my department, it's a percentage of time and manpower between the people. In the fleet department, it is the number of vehicles that they maintain altogether versus the number of water vehicles and sewer vehicles. In the treasurer's department, it is the number of bills paid and processed, or bonds that we do and process. It is a very exacting number, and all of them are a couple of percent. It won't kill you if if you get rid of human resources, and it'll be like 1.23%. But it is a little bit of a cut. But particularly with the administration department, any cuts that are made, there are substantial cuts that would happen to the indirect costs. So in the effort to do what I think the intent is to save money, some of the cuts that I propose are more to save the town money as opposed to cut somebody and only gain a 34%, 36% benefit out of it. With 4.9% cut, the highway department, who we lost a person a couple of years ago, we would lose our summer help. We lost a person, but we had a little bit of funding left over from that person, so we moved it into summer help. They were awfully helpful last year. They basically go weed whacking 8 hours a day, 3 days a week. That's what they do. And they do painting. We have guys in the water department who paint hydrants, and they paint plows for the winter and whatnot. There would be a reduction in overtime, and I do have a summary in there, if you look through my paperwork, a list of all of the general overtime functions that we perform for both ourselves and other departments. It costs about $18,000 for us to do our work over the course of a year. We have the on-call overtime, which we get an average of 1.5 calls a week. Some weeks you don't get any calls, other weeks you get a call every couple of days, if you had, particularly in the windy season in the fall. We also have our compost site, which we man, and I think that is a great benefit to the town. We keep that open on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. It's actually not manned on Fridays. I open it up and close it, or actually sometimes one of my board members close it. I go by several times a day to check on it. It does add risk to the town, because if somebody dropped off 55 gallons of something and no one was there, I now own it. We haven't had that. We do have a lot of trash dumped up there, which we've picked up and maintained in the past, but it is a concern. So the most of the cuts for the highway department would be a reduction in some of the road maintenance that falls under our department, some of our maintenance of equipment that falls under the department, the highway department, and a lot of that road maintenance would have to be absorbed into our articles and Chapter 90 money. As you know, we get funding every year for articles and funding for Chapter 90. That used to be specifically for projects. We've been somewhat forced to consolidate that as our budget's gone down. I also have a summary in there of our operating budgets over the past year since 2009. If I can find it. Our highway expenses have gone from $258,000 to our level service budget this year of $236,000. So as things have gone up, our budget's gone down, and most of that because we still have to pay for gas and oil and electricity at our facility. A lot of that does just lower our costs for road maintenance and these other items, and they get rolled into article money, which isn't really what the intent is supposed to be. We have a lot more work that we need to get done than we are doing, and it makes us somewhat inefficient. Again, with administration, we would have cuts, basically relying more on our enterprise funds. We work out of a water building. We pay back some direct costs to them out of that building. We've talked about doing more indirects. There is actually a reverse indirect, I guess you'd call it, that we minus out the square footage that myself and my assistant director and the administrative staff have in that building, and that gets taken out of the indirects. It's not a huge number, but it is a number. But we do pay a portion of the electric bill. We pay a portion for the copier maintenance and things like that, and it would just reduce our ability to assist the water and sewer department in paying those bills. And again, the more money, a lot more money would come out of the highway division, just because they have it. Another thing that would be reduced is police details. It is something, it's sometimes almost 15 to 20% of a budget on a construction project. I spend over $60,000 a year in police details. Most of the work that we're doing on the roadway requires a police detail. Some states have gone to flagmen versus police detail. Massachusetts has, but it hasn't been widely adopted for safety reasons.
So you have that option now of not having?
It is an option, depending upon the safety of the situation. The police could say that you can't work on the roadway without safety. And generally, it's the main drags. You know, hopefully if you're in a cul-de-sac, you don't need two officers at the end of the cul-de-sac directing traffic around the circle.
Well, you also on the flag is, as opposed to police officer, you have to pay prevailing wage.
You do have to pay prevailing wage for everything that we do. Technically, under Mass General Law, from $1, we're required to pay prevailing wage. Over $10,000 on large contracts, they need to document that prevailing wage is being paid. 17% cuts. Under DPW admin, again, I have not taken a lot out of salaries and wages, only because it would be reflected in there, but the operations would change. Under the highway department, we would lose the superintendent and 2 laborers, part-time laborers. We would shift the operations of our now assistant director to overseeing the highway department. We would shift that person down there and thin out their role, which would in turn thin out my role. But that would be the way to do it because it's the most money. It's 2 laborers, and it's hard for me to get rid of 2 laborers. I need bodies out there. That's, there is no management in the world, all the management in the world isn't gonna get the pothole filled.
Need the shovel guy.
Yes, you unfortunately need the shovel guy, or, and we've looked at these scenarios, and there are some of them that unfortunately we are moving towards outsourcing some of the work that we do. We repair a lot of catch basins in-house. I think we repaired 35 of them last year in-house. But it is time consuming for my staff, and as more and more work builds on. Unfortunately, unlike a business, when the economy drops, people aren't necessarily buying your product, so, laying off people in management, you have kind of a downside. It's kind of inverse with, seemingly with Public Works. You have a lot of people who are out of work and are at home and have a lot of time to see the deficiencies in the roadway. Not that they're not there, we shouldn't take care of them anyway, but you get a stiff increase in people who notice things. When you're rushing on your way to work, apparently you don't always notice them. So our workload, we have a work order log, we track every call that comes in. We have had a large increase over the last several years. Additionally, in water and sewer, we've talked about it before, there are a lot more people who are unable to pay their bills on time. We used to have a shut-off policy in 2008, 2009. You don't pay your bill, we go and shut you off. And it was sort of to force people to pay. We started finding out, you shut them off, they're not coming back to get their water turned back on and pay the $35 fee. They just don't have it. So we've set up long-term payment programs as an alternative for that. And it's actually worked. We've kept our unrecovered debt down to a minimum and have been able to maintain our rate structure using that methodology. We haven't raised water rates in over 4 years and won't again this year. We would have to reduce the hours of the compost facility. Again, it is something that it's done on overtime. It is a significant amount of money. At the 17% cut, it would still be $21,000, $21,600, but that would shorten the year. Sometimes if it's nice out early, we start a couple weeks early, and if it goes well into the winter season, if it's a slow start to the winter, we'll keep it open for a couple of weeks of December. This would have to have a steadfast closing because we couldn't afford to keep it open. Additionally, we would, again, have to take more money out of articles from Chapter 90 and articles for road maintenance. One of the things that we do is private road maintenance. We maintain gravel roads in town. They are private roads. There is a bylaw in town that says if a person comes to the Board of Selectmen and if half the people on the road ask the Board of Selectmen, then the Board of Selectmen asks the Department of Public Works, we will go and grade your gravel roads. We used to do that every time they called, and people would call a lot. We now do it twice a year, and we do it after our roads are done. This was a very bad winter. There are a lot of private roads out there that are in very bad shape. We just don't have the ability to go out and spend the 5 weeks at the beginning of the season to go and gravel grade the 5.5 miles of roads that we have. And we certainly don't have the money to spend to send people out there. Last year, we actually had a professional company come in with a larger grader and regrade and shape the roads, because after a while, you're just dealing with the surface. And we spent a little bit of money on that, so hopefully that'll allow us to keep them longer, but it would reduce the amount of ability for us to do that. And another thing that we do in-house, and last year or the year before, I think was the first year that we've ever had to tap snow and ice for fuel. We've always paid for it in-house with the budget. As fuel's crept up and up, and we've had these long snowstorms kill us. I don't mind 60 inches of snow, but at 4 inches of time is nice and easy. You start running 22, 23-hour storms, as we had 4 of, it really burns a lot of fuel because you don't shut the truck off the whole time you're running. And we would have to reduce our funding within our budget and then go to snow and ice if we have to. And again, that's always the last result. We'll always try to do what we can within our budget. And at 38.26% cut, there is no compost. We lose 4 laborers, and basically we are responding to phone calls. That would be the only maintenance that we do in-house, would be reactive, and there would be nothing proactive about anything that we do. Our services to the other departments would essentially cease unless they're willing to pay for it themselves, which I doubt they would be able to. So the other departments would be left on their own. One of the things you got to understand about infrastructure, nobody cares until it's broken. The school department, they have thousands of square yards of pavement that they don't care about until it has a giant hole in it. And they don't. It's not in everyone's mindset to worry about a drain line or a sewer line or a water line or your paving until it's a problem. But I don't have in my budget money for thousands and thousands of square yards of pavement. And when I talked to the school about it, they didn't either. They didn't plan for it. So last year, we put together a long-term program to work together to have an article to make sure that we maintain it. And one of the schools we spent, AMVET school, we spent about $70,000 up there, filling a lot of large potholes that were up there, crack sealing and seal coating it. That parking lot was about 2 or 3 years away from needing a full reconstruction, which would have cost $300,000 to $400,000. And there's a lot of things that we can do together to keep ahead and maintain it. But you need manpower, and you need to work together with a plan. And you do need money, unfortunately. And not being able to work with other departments, I think, would be very tough on all of us. And I'll be the first to say, you know, I don't think of us as a DPW. We are just part of the town. We're part of a larger cog. The reduction of the 4 laborers, as I said, would be very difficult on us. You guys asked for mandated things that we have to do. We have a stormwater permit. It's called the NIPD's Phase 2 stormwater permit. It was issued in 2003. It's been kind of rolling along, and they're getting ready to come back out with that and have more mandated things that we have to do. 2 of the things that we're required to do is sweep the streets twice a year and clean the catch basins. Sweeping the streets twice a year takes one guy about 2 months. Doing half the catch basin takes about one guy 2 months. There's 2 of my guys for the entire summer, or whenever we get to it, gone out of the 4 or 5 guys I have left. Roadside mowing takes another 2 people, pretty much half the summer to do. It grows up in May, and we cut it down in June, and then we gotta go cut it a little bit more in September. We also do downtown cleanups early in the morning. I know some people complain about it, but you just can't be backpack blowing in people's faces at 11 in the downtown. So there were a lot of things that a 4.09% budget, I think everybody's tempered now that we can deal with cuts and address them in different ways and work harder together. Beyond that, I really do think, literally and figuratively, we start to unravel. Our roads won't be able to, I mean, they're difficult to maintain now as it is, let alone the other infrastructure we're responsible for, drainage, sidewalks, bridges. It's difficult to maintain things with the manpower and money that we have now. So that's my presentation on those. Does anyone have any questions about any aspect of those?
When you say these things are mandated and they're gonna come out with new ones, is there any opportunity that those mandates have a check next to them, attached to them?
No, I met with the EPA about, not personally, but with a group of other DPWs about 2 years ago in Worcester. Worcester's a strong advocate against all of these updates and have fought hard against them to no avail. As you know, we've talked about the federal and state mandates before. They estimated that a town of our size, it would cost about $250,000 a year to properly implement the NIPD's Phase 2 stormwater regulations, which will require dry weather and wet weather sampling, which means that we have about over 1,000 outfalls. Send someone out there and do, I think it's 20% of your outfalls a year, go take a sample and then go have that tested, which costs about $100. And then when it rains, I don't know how we do it, within the first several hours of a rainstorm, get out there and take a wet weather sample and go have that tested. And that's what they're looking to do, to see if there's any illicit discharges into our riverways. And they said for a town like ours, it'd be about 250,000. I think for Bob Moylan in Worcester, they said it'd be in excess of $1 million a year just to institute those programs.
We should join Worcester in our objections. The other thing is, when it comes to infiltration and lining and all, that's all subcontracted, is that correct?
Yes, we put that out for, we have a rolling program that we do in town where they investigate. We put together a design and we put it out for a contract, and that entire process is about $1 million a year, and that's part of our comprehensive wastewater management plan under the sewer department, and that was sort of our agreement with the state for expanding sewer. They wouldn't let us tie in any more connections, large connections, until we gave them a comprehensive wastewater management plan.
Percentage-wise, how much of the town has been done?
Not a lot. I mean, it's a 10-year program. We're in year 3, so we haven't done it yet, so I'd say 20% of the town, but we're starting in the worst areas and working our way out.
You're the biggest bang for your buck, right?
Yes, and it'll work its way down. We also have an I&I capacity fee that we have instituted, and it's not on for this year because it was in its infancy, but next year, in October, we have a stabilization fund. We will go and put money in the stabilization fund, and then next year's I&I program, part of that $1 million that we'll be asking for will be subsidized by that stabilization fund, and that's new sources coming in are being required to pay their fair share towards that program.
But you already have a fee that you charge above and beyond a connection fee.
That is the fee. We have the connection fee, and then we have the capacity fee.
But that's already in existence, is that correct?
It is. It was little before. It's not. It is $12 per gallon, which for a 2-bedroom home, I think it's about $2,600.
Mr. Chairman, just tying into the mandates, we're getting ready to, the DPW is finishing up the plan for the 10 Mile River repair and cleanup. And part of that, once the plan gets approved, is applying for grants. There's a high probability that we're gonna be denied some of these grant opportunities if we don't have these controls in place, such as the stormwater drainage system controls. It's the same problem we run into with a lot of grants in town. Because we don't have something else in place, we're not entitled to get the grant. So it's a lot more hidden costs or lost opportunities associated with us not being able to do these programs.
One of the things as part of the 10 Mile River program that we had a committee we started a couple of years ago, and as part of that program right now, we're working with all of the departments to upgrade our hazard mitigation plan, which opens up federal funding, mitigation funding for us. That is probably the only way we're going to be able to afford to do the 10 Mile River. It's gonna be dredged out. The wall's gonna be rebuilt. Formal easements need to be taken over that. I mean, it is as I've been saying since I got here, 20 years, $20 million is probably a good fair estimate of what that's gonna cost. But it's the only way to get rid of the flooding. So we do have, that is on our website, the entire report that the committee adopted, and we're going through that process now. And that's the next step in the process is we're doing a little bit finer work on this reach of the 10 Mile River out here behind us, and we're working on that hazard mitigation plan.
Mark, you mentioned you go through a process or calculation to figure out the allocation to administration. And I know a big portion of that, or a large part of that, gets reimbursed through the enterprise fund. So is there any flexibility to somehow maybe increase that allocation, or I just don't know how it works? Or when was the last time you looked at it to maybe do a little bit of a shift?
2009, Mark?
Yep.
I believe it was 2009 or maybe 2010, we actually independently, us and administration, hired somebody to independently determine what that is. Because, of course, Mark's going to want more and I'm going to want less. So to take that fight out of it, they did just a systematic approach to it. Like I said, it has been probably 5 years since that's been updated. But the town accountant was supposed to be the referee in the fight, and he goes through the process and adds that up. So we stay out of it generally.
The other thing that happens, it's by formula, so because our budgets have been decreasing since 2010, if the town accountant's budget, for example, drops by 5%, so now when we go to assess his, what water and sewer and solid waste should be paying, that assessment drops by 5%.
Yeah, I did give you a brief summary sheet for water and sewer on one of the first 3 or 4 pages. It's like this.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes over that.
No, but is there any chance to increase the percentages somehow? And I know the base is dropping, but just somehow, not this is great, but there's money in the enterprise fund, if we could somehow tap into that through this allocation process.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the process would be to revisit the.
And I know the reserve, it's all put aside for infrastructure improvements and whatnot, but we're in really tough times now, so.
No, I mean, I suppose it is something that should be reviewed periodically anyway. Things happen, people leave, always a different way to look at it. And I mean, I gotta say, you get a lot of unintended assets out of at least the water and sewer department. Obviously, when they're out plowing, they're out in water and sewer trucks plowing. When they're plowing during working hours, they're being paid out of water and sewer during those working hours. When water and sewer is finished with the vehicle, it doesn't look like the highway vehicles when the highway vehicle's finished with them. They're a little bit better shape. We have an SUV, 2001 SUV that the sewer department is replacing this year. Pretty good shape, but it's getting old. They don't want to pay the maintenance costs on it. But as it turns out, Karen from Animal Control is looking for something to throw dead deer in. This truck's perfect for dead deer. 4-wheel drive, she can get around in the winter. So we've always been very amicable about pushing things back into the town in order, again, we are all one town. I know we're different funds.
The other question I had too is, you guys, first of all, did a great job this winter with snow and ice, and it was you
got the bill, right?
Yeah. But how do we stack up, I don't know if you guys have this or not, but cost per mile for snow and ice removal compared to?
I don't have that offhand. I mean, particularly this year versus other years might have been a little bit different. I know, and I know Mark mentioned it when he spoke to you guys, that we're being reimbursed by FEMA for a portion of the money for just the first 72 hours. I gotta tell you, a lot of people aren't gonna get a lot of money because they're rolling home sleeping. I mean, the day after the storm, we were out doing sidewalks, and that was just, it was so much snow, we wanted to keep moving. And we got a little lucky there because, normally you wait a day and regroup and kind of get your head together after 30 hours of being on the road. So in issues like that, we were probably spending more money than, say, Attleborough, who didn't do anything for 5 days. Legitimately took other towns a little bit more time to get rolling. So I haven't looked this year exactly what it was. At one point, we polled everybody to see where they were, just to see, hey, how are you guys spending on their money? And everybody was well blown past what their normal annual was, and I think that was the second week of February.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess where I'm going is, I mean, you guys do a great job. You hit the border of some other towns, and it's like, wow, you notice right away, boy, it's not quite as good, but could we not do as good a job and save some money? I'm just not sure.
I'd be more than happy to go home early. I mean, you can understand, I drive, a truck with a plow. I'm usually in that for about 3 hours before something happens to one of our older trucks, and my truck's gone and somebody else is doing that, and I'm in the sidewalk plow. So, which, by the way, is the worst piece of equipment we have. But, I mean, it is all hands on deck when we're out doing it. We're trying to get it done as soon as possible. Another unintended consequence, if you go with these higher cuts, the more guys you lose, the more other people you're paying to do this work, or you're not getting it done at all. I mean, our intent, our program is a little bit robust, I would say. Our intent is, after it stops snowing to have everything cleaned up within 4 hours after the snow stops. And that's most of the, try to get people back into school as soon as possible. I'm up at 4 in the morning with Kyle and Sue Cullen, talking to them, trying to get, see if school can be opened on time. This year was tough, but we always try. I mean, once it snows, we don't really focus on money, but, you know, we're not, I'd never say we're throwing it away either.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out, you know, any way to, you know, save some money.
No, I mean, I'm going to a meeting tomorrow where they're talking about GPS locating trucks. I don't know the cost of that. I've looked into it before, but during snowstorms, so you can move people around a little bit better. There's always ways to refine it. We have spreader control units, so where we used to be throwing down 600-700 pounds per lane mile, and you get those snow cones at the stoplights sometimes because it just keeps spinning out while they're sitting there. These are all speed controlled, so we've been saving some money through that.
Okay, thanks.
Buy John a shovel.
Just two things have happened in relation to snow removal. One is liability. I think you're all familiar with your own personal homeowners policies. New state laws have made you a lot more responsible for the condition of your own walkways, especially businesses. So we have a liability issue if we knowingly do not take care of things. Like, for example, under the state law for potholes, if we get a call that there is a hazard in the road, a pothole, and we don't respond within a reasonable period of time, which is normally interpreted 24 hours, to either fix or put something on there to prevent it, the second person hitting that pothole, we're responsible for all the damage to their vehicle. But the big thing is safety. I mean, the whole purpose for snow removal is safety, so that people aren't driving on unsafe road conditions. So it's you know, when we start, and I think Mark's right, we don't spend it crazily, okay, but we make sure we spend everything we can to keep it as safe as possible.
Any other questions? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Change of scenery, I'm not here to talk about money.
Good evening.
John Dromsky, representing the bylaw committee. Surprised this particular warrant actually had 10 bylaw articles on it, which is rather unusual. First one I want to speak to is the article that was submitted by the bylaw committee itself. Just to get that out of the way, that was Article 11. It's really a straightforward responsibility. The bylaw committee has responsibility of trying to keep the bylaws up to date where they need to be, and in fact, there are several.
Is that on the special or the annual?
Oh, excuse me, we're on the special.
Yep.
You have to?
I'm sorry.
I just have to keep.
That's not,
I thought you guys were all done the annual.
Oh, John, I have a feeling we're not gonna be done at all.
Yeah. Okay. We're still finding, Bob knows that he's got one in the thing that he submitted, we're still finding articles in there that date back to open town meeting that have never been fixed, and this has been updated, let's put it that way. This is one of them. This merely relates to the attendance at town meeting, and as I said, it's if you think back for a moment very quickly to open town meeting, in those days, any registered voter could attend town meeting, could speak, and could vote. We had a quorum of 200 people, but if you had a really hot topic, you could probably have well over 1,000. I think the first town meeting I ever went to, back when I first came to town, was when they were talking about building a high school, and actually the meeting was convened in 2 separate buildings. So I don't know what the number was. So the big concern when you have an open town meeting, particularly that size, you have to register, everybody has to be registered in. It's necessary that if it's presumed you're going to have people who aren't registered voters attend, they have to be kept separate from the registered voters, so on the vote. And just to point out, back in example, while we're talking about bylaw, in 1952, the actual wording of the bylaw was the Board of Selectmen shall direct that only registered voters of the town be admitted to the place of meeting or to a definite portion thereof. And then in early 1970s, a complete redo of the book was done, and the wording was changed to take the responsibility away from the selectmen and put it on the moderator. It says only registered voters of the
Not the
town
same thing.
may be admitted to town meeting, except by permission of the moderator or his designee. All non-registered voters so admitted shall be assigned, excuse me, to a definite portion of the town meeting place. The problem was, apparently nobody recognized it. Right around that time, we adopted the RTM form of government. And it's a basic provision of all RTM charters or special acts that all town meetings are public or open to the public. This goes back to 1915 when the first limited town meeting or registered town meeting, Representative Town Meeting Act was passed for Brookline. The wording was then, all town meetings shall be held with open doors, which means anybody can attend. In 1931, the state passed the standard form for representative town meeting government. It said all town meetings shall be public. Our first RTM Act, 73, we said all town meetings shall be open to the public. 76, took a couple words out, said all town meetings shall be public. And then in 99, somebody got a little cute with the wording. I understood their point, but they said all meetings held by representative town meeting members for any purpose relative to representative town meeting business shall be open and comply with the laws of the Commonwealth regulating open meetings. Well, that's something we're going to have to actually fix if we want to get in, because town meetings are not subject to the open meeting law. There's a separate rules for town meetings. Now, committee meetings and so forth, like the RTM coordinating committee meeting, so forth, can be subject to open town meeting, to the open meeting laws. But town meeting itself is not. At one time, it was a ruling of the Attorney General, but I think it was in 2009. They redid the open meeting law and said explicitly that town meetings are not subject to the law. However, that's a subject for another time, because that has to, the only way to change that is to go back into the legislature on a special act. So that's not the subject for tonight.
I don't understand.
Oh, go ahead, please.
That has to be changed before this can happen?
No. No, we can fix ours to bring it in conformance. That really, the basic law is that all town meetings, all representative town meetings should be, or open to the public.
Okay.
We need to fix the other one. The interpretation that's been placed upon it is that the meetings are open as it is in the RTM Act. It's just the fact that when whoever worded that in 99 apparently didn't recognize that the open meeting law was not the guiding law for town meetings. Ideally, we would change that first, but it's something we need to do in the near future. We need to be looking at the RTM Act for a number of changes, and that's one of the ones that'll have to be taken care of. I'm just mentioning it because the wording is a little different than it was used down in the sequence. So where does that leave us? Well, we have a let's see, how did I put it? Excuse me. Okay, the wording that has been recommended, that was submitted by the bylaw committee to be put into the
We'll see.
bylaws now as a substitute for the original section is all town meetings shall be open to the public. Persons other than RTM members shall be assigned to a separate portion of the town meeting place. Actually, in the RTM Act, it says RTM members will be assigned to their own place. This just sort of says, well, everybody else is going to be in their place as well. The wording is relatively straightforward, and I says it puts us in compliance both with the state law and the RTM Act. So where does that leave us? We have obsolete wording. The town clerk has said at a recent, I guess within the past year at a meeting, that they don't restrict anybody coming anyway. But that hasn't been the case certainly in anything in modern times.
Yeah, I don't remember there
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been there. we're not in compliance with our own, basically, with our own RTM Act. And so what would be the reason for keeping the existing wording in place? And the only thing I've heard is, well, there might be somebody someday that we don't want to let in. But, and I mean, that's sort of, give me a break. There was a comment about, oh, we could have people come in from Plainville or something. Well,
So what?
yeah, well, so what? Actually, there could be a case where we could have a delegation from Plainville or Attleborough or somebody come in because we have mutual assistance on public safety. We provide, Attleborough provides water and sewer to some of our residents, and I think we have similar arrangements to, of some sort to Plainville.
Yeah.
So certainly, if there was a need for somebody, we should welcome them, and if we had to go there, we should be welcomed there. So, it's just one of these things, it's almost, it's really a housekeeping act. Let's just do it and get it done.
Yeah.
So if you don't have anybody have any questions on that?
John?
Sure.
Just a general comment on all the particular bylaws in question. Are these all going to town council for review?
I believe they all have, but I know the critical ones have, because that's one of the problems that exists in
Right.
5
This,
of the
for
articles.
example, this particular one has.
This particular one, I don't believe.
Has not been.
It's not, right. Although, Mark, didn't you say at one time, about a year ago, that you were sending articles like this as a matter of routine?
Only the ones that were submitted by outside agencies, not the bylaw study committee. We would normally assume that they would do that themselves.
Certainly, if we were getting into something that the wording was a little more complex or an issue, that
You would refer that.
we would be doing
request
that.
to be, okay.
Relative to the other articles that are on there that are bylaw articles, the committee met yesterday. Primarily, the intention was to meet with the Concom people because of that article that they have submitted. But we went over each of those, and I don't know, did you send a copy of that
Yes.
to those guys?
Yep. Every show.
Okay. I'll just go through them quickly, if I may, in the order that we covered them. The first one was Article 14 by the Conservation Commission was to adopt a wetlands protection bylaw. This, in fact, is a rather complicated document. It's 10 pages long. In the meeting, we on the committee had only actually seen the text of this just a couple days before, so it was partially a learning experience. We had a pretty extensive discussion with questions and comments, but there was a chief point in there. I'm not sure everybody understands, and this is why we've raised this. Whether this bylaw passes or not, the town will still be subject to the rather extensive laws relative to conservation and environment that the state has in place. There's the Wetlands Protection Act, which itself is a 10-page document, which in turn spawned the regulations, which actually go to 254 pages. This is like something happens down in Washington. And there's also the Rivers Protection Act, which is another 11 pages. These are all, will be there no matter what this town meeting does. What the Conservation Commission is attempting to do, is to take several sections that are in the Wetlands Protection Act and strengthen them. As they say, and I agree with one of them, particularly aware of, what is in there is a minimum. And at least many of the towns have strengthened those. So they have created their document which takes certain sections of the Wetland Protection Act and strengthens them in certain ways with the wording. Now, the concern we had for people understanding, both ourselves, and I assume probably your board and the RTM as well, is what in that document that they've submitted, the 10-page, it's actually new. What is it that's really being voted to be put in place, and what is it as base language that already exists in the laws that will stay there whether the document is approved or not? So we have asked them to go through the document and to highlight those portions of the document that would be new, that actually is what RTM is voting on. I'm guessing it's probably about the equivalent of about 2 pages out of the 10, but I don't know for sure. It was too much of a task for us to try to do in a couple days and to try to backtrack and everything. They've agreed to do that. So what the bylaw committee has chosen to do at this point is to defer making a recommendation until we've had a good look at it. And then we'll get to you people with our recommendation. That may take, I could say, it might take up to 2 weeks. I don't think it's going to. The bylaw committee will be meeting again on Monday of this coming week. Notified Sharon Doyle of this and said, if you're ready, please come. If not, as soon as you are, let us know and we'll schedule another meeting just to go through that point. So that's the status of that right now. As far as we're concerned, it's a deferred action until we hear back from them. Will we possibly then look at that and say, you know, maybe there's some things in there we would recommend adjusting or modifying and so forth. We'll do that when we get there. But right now, it's even too much for us to wade through and figure out what is the town meeting really voting on and what is you're going to have anyway. Okay, going on, if I might. The next one was the two articles, Article 12 and Article 13. They were prepared by the bylaw, or excuse me, the RTM Coordinating Committee, but ended up being submitted. Mr. Ners had requested of the Mr. Poirier to submit them, and they were submitted, sponsored, so to speak, by the town clerk. The committee, the bylaw committee is supportive or approves basically of everything that's contained in those, but there's a couple of them where we are going to recommend some minor modifications in wording. In fact, I spoke to Mark this afternoon about one aspect of it. We expect that we'll take care of that by next Monday and be able to get a recommendation to you on those articles. The next one in there was Article 11, which I had just discussed, which was the ones.
I'm sorry. So you treated 12 and 13 the same way?
Yeah,
That's
basically.
okay.
Yeah.
I just wanna.
Yeah, they're slightly different in the focus of the two groups. That's why they were presented, but they're pretty much standard articles. Article 11 we had talked about. Article 10 was submitted by Max Gould when he was town clerk. It proposes to reduce the RTM membership from 15 to 12. Mr. Gould was out of town this week, so I've tried to reach him, and hopefully he can meet with us on next Monday on the 4th. I did provide to the to the committee. That particular article was suggested the RTM Coordinating Committee about 2 months ago, and the comments were made, and I added some comments to it, so we'll see how that evolves. And then finally, there's 5 articles that I think you already are aware of this, were submitted by the Board of Selectmen regarding appointments to positions in police, fire, and so forth, and I think we've all been advised that there are statutory issues, and I think Mark has already notified you people that the selectmen intend to IP them, and our recommendation obviously then is do not approve. And so that's it, unless you have some questions or thoughts.
You're gonna try and get the letter for maybe Monday? Or you meeting Monday?
For the rest of them.
Right.
Yeah, you'd have it by Tuesday. Whatever we have, I have a feeling, though, that the one on the Concon is not going to have. We might, but I don't think so. That really is something that needs, hopefully, anybody that's dealing with it is going to give it some serious thought, because
It's critical.
I know when I think I told a few people, it was about 15 years ago, I was accidentally attended a council meeting in Attleborough. It's the only one I ever went to. I thought they were going to be talking about capital projects, and it was the night they brought that up. It was surprised we haven't had more here. It was a full house, standing room only, overflow into another room with TV and everything else, and went on for hours on discussing basically the same thing that this bylaw is proposed to do here. It ultimately one was passed in Attleborough, but it was a hot topic.
I think one other time you were here, you talked about do people who are not RTM members have a right to speak at the meeting?
Subject for future discussion.
Please, how is it?
Right now, they do not.
Right now, the RTM is operating under a rule basically dictated by the moderator, which is fairly restrictive, in the sense that they have to go through a process typically of having an RTM member introduce and sponsor them and so forth. I personally don't believe that's the way it should be done, and there's a bit of a story connected with that whole thing, but that's not part of the subject tonight.
So as of right now, though,
It's up to the discretion of the moderator, is it not?
The moderator, well, to answer your question, fundamental of any town meeting is no one may speak, whether it's a member or what. No one may speak without recognition.
Right.
The question of creating classifications or, levels of who may speak, there are a few towns that have done it in their bylaws, a couple, not many. Most towns in any of their official documentation, that is bylaws or RTM Act, do not have it. The standard wording of the state law, which most towns have, and basically what we have, says that any registered voter may speak subject to rules that may be enacted by the body. What happened in our RTM Act, they took about 3 separate provisions, let's say, that you typically see them separate in a RTM charter or an RTM Act, and put them in one sentence. And the business about town officials speaking, the business about whether registered voters can speak, and the business about being recognized by the moderator all got stuck in one sentence. This was done in 1976, I think, I'm not sure. It's one of those things that really needs to be looked at, because it could be done clearer.
Yes, it could be a lot
But
clearer.
there has never been.
Yes or no question, and he didn't get a yes or a no. So you don't know either.
There's never been anything enacted, never been anything approved by town meeting, which is basically town meeting. This is very clear. Town meeting sets its own rules. There's been nothing ever said by town meeting that restricts the right of registered voters to speak.
Right.
Unfortunately, when this was introduced back in, I believe it was 2011 was the first time, there was referencing a situation that existed out in the town of Egremont, which is out in the...
Oh, I remember the talk well.
Yeah.
That went on.
So we're not, that's out of the subject.
okay.
I merely would answer if somebody asked me before.
Okay.
It is a subject for future discussion. Not tonight, not this meeting.
The warrant, discuss it.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Till then,
Please don't bring that one up again, that was a nightmare.
Until then, you're in your...
okay,
Okay. Anything, Paul?
everybody,
Yeah, what do we got here?
we have, this is the CIP,
Yeah. Yep.
okay? I want everybody to go over it and see if there's anything in there you've got questions on. I have questions on a couple, but we'll wait until we...
With all due respect, are you gonna ask tonight questions on it?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because I had no warning that you were gonna discuss the CIP.
No,
It's in there, it's one of the section.
no, I wouldn't do that to you, Mark.
You know, Mike,
I know other people have tried to influence the discussion.
So I noticed.
this is the first time I've ever known you not to be able to provide a very well-done presentation on anything.
Okay,
I just had a point of clarification.
I might be stuck in there by accident.
The number here, is that the
Everyone got it.
annual
Stuck in the
payment
section.
basically for the
Yeah,
debt
where
we're
was
carrying
it,
out?
Michelle?
471,
Might-
629, that's the
might
end
have
of
clicked it.
payment?
That's the annual payment for the first year.
Yeah, it's in
Okay, I have another thing.
It's not, oh, okay.
Okay, Monday night, be prepared for a long night, because we're gonna be in executive session with the school committee after they do their public presentation. Just a word of caution, be polite.
Someone has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that directed to me, people?
It's to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stacy Nassani, RTM Precinct 3. It's been definitely a process sitting in all the meetings. I've always watched the recordings. But my question is, in preparation for Monday night's meeting, what is the preference of the board if there are people who would like to speak with the board? I understand that definitely I'll be going into executive session with the school department, and I have the agenda to know, but what is the preference of the board as to when you'd be wanting to hear from anyone in the public?
The public can speak, but they're gonna make it short.
At what point, though? You're saying before you go into executive session, or?
Oh, it'll be before the executive session, because
Okay,
once we go into executive session, we're gonna adjourn.
Right.
I don't want to have to clear this place out and then everybody sit out there and disturb the police department.
I appreciate that. No, I didn't know if you were gonna have it at the beginning, like, the planning board, or wait till before the executive session, which that's all I wanted to
No,
clarify, so, okay,
It'd be after the school committee or during the school committees.
okay.
That's why they're last. That'll give you time to say whatever you want to say about it. And then after your public's done, we'll go into executive session and to just close after that.
Okay, thank you, just wanted to
Okay.
clarify.
Thanks.
Your next meeting is Monday night, 6:15.
Monday night at 6:50.
6:30.
Is it 6:30 Monday night?
Oh, no, I lied.
No,
6:15.
6:15.
I have it in writing.
6:15.
I know we all.
6:15.
6:15, I
That's
thought,
what, that's what's posted, that's what's on the
I
agenda.
did.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna stick
I
to.
didn't bring my schedule, but
No, and it is posted for 6:15, 100% sure. My brain is.
It was an update.
your brain, I think, what's that?
Monday night is just school committee?
No, Monday night is, I think the first is,
Planning board is first.
Michelle, the first is the planning board,
Planning board is first.
and then we go to
And
either
then we go to
police or,
fire, school.
Okay.
and each one of them's got 3/4 of an hour,
Yeah.
because I've asked for a line item by line item budget for police, fire, and school, since they're the biggest departments with the biggest money, and we're looking for a place to save money, so that's the way we went. Or I decided to go. I won't blame it on the committee. It's my decision. That's.
Can we say that all the time, Paul? It's your fault.
I got broad shoulders and a.
And other than that, I have nothing.
You give nothing? Anybody else any?
Nothing.
Do you want a motion to adjourn?
And Jay's coming in Monday. Or whenever we can fit him in.
I talked, yeah, I haven't.
Monday, Monday or Tuesday, he'll be in, okay?
Thank you, I appreciate that. You're a good guy. Now, do you want a motion to adjourn?
That's up to you.
Cost you a nickel. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned at 9:15. We're 15 minutes.